did you want to say, Karen?
Well, I think things are beginning to escalate, and I think part of it is that when Keir Starmer recognised Hamas, I think it was almost giving them a free go and said, right, you know, you can carry on now. And I think he's actually, you know, he's not interested in whether we're British or not. He couldn't care less. As long as he's got the power, he couldn't care less what it was described as. He doesn't like women, so he's not too bothered about them being subjugated.
Well, you're right, Karen. He's trying to appease to voter groups that he really wants to have. It's not even about, it's not about Hamas, it's not about Palestine. It's all about the voter groups within this country. And that, you're right, that is the issue there. Well,
yeah, Karen, I agree entirely that Starmer has no real convictions to speak of whatsoever, which is why I think he is loathed to an unprecedented degree. But the other thing which I think is important is that this Labor Party knows that they have several MPs who are going to be wiped off the electoral map by independent so-called Gaza MPs if they don't appease Muslim voting blocs. Now, look, that's still not going to work because the Islamic voters are still going to pick, you know, this, you know, inverted commas, real thing over someone who's just trying to appease an Islamic voting bloc. People like Wes Streeting, for example, he's done. Unless he moves seats, he's going to lose his seat at the next election to a Gaza independent. They're well aware of this. And so much of what you're seeing, including, as you rightly pointed out, the recognition of Hamas, was not because of principle. It was purely because they know that the electoral maths is going against them unless they try and pick up more Islamic voters with the threat of Gaza independence looming large come 2029.
Karen, do you agree with that? Final word?
I do to a certain extent, but it does feel like that there's a government-backed coup going on in this country.
Interesting. Well, Starmer, I mean,
I agree with you entirely there.
Will here has more chance of being the next Prime Minister than Keir Starmer has getting to the next election, let's just say.
I don't, but I can promise you I'd do a better job.
Well, Karen, thank you so much for your call. That's Karen in Bournemouth. We've got to go to break because we've got a very, very special, probably my favourite reporter at The Sun. It's Thomas Godfrey. He's going to be joining us in studio, and he's going to be talking about the TikTok smugglers that are luring migrants to Britain. He's also going to talk about his massive win, which I have to credit him a lot for. Migrant appeals will now actually be published to the public. This is something we've had to fight tooth and nail for. It seems like a basic British right. That and much more after these messages.
Some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the home of common sense.
Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan. Top of the morning to you. This is Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, I'm getting a lot of messages on Sharia law. My goodness. If you do want to call in and chat to me about it, 03444991000 is the number. Absolutely give me a call. I want to discuss it because it seems like Europe is going down the drain with this stuff, and it's a bit of a slippery slope. Once we start having Sharia courts, what else are we going to have? You know, it does worry me a lot. So do give me a call to chat about that. Well, Europe does tie itself in knots. TikTok, the Chinese-owned app, may I just remind everyone else, is being used to advertise routes to Britain. Smugglers on social media. It's really a joke, and the British taxpayer seems to be the punchline in this sort of thing. I mean, I really worry when we start to see... I saw a video the other day that was like Dhaka to Dover, you know, packages being sold to people, you know, for, I don't know, about $5,000. You can get over here, you can have a package deal. It's sort of like a package holiday. And this is on the cusp of Pakistan being the highest country for asylum claims. A country that has a space program, a country that has no war actively going on. So we can see exactly why these craven individuals are coming across. I've got Thomas Godfrey. He's a reporter at The Sun, and he's been doing a lot of work on this. He actually told me, I don't know if I can tell everyone, but he's doing a bit of an investigation too on this sort of thing. Thomas, what do you know about this? What's going on?
I mean, there's a huge number of accounts out there offering this sort of service to would-be asylum seekers looking to cross the channel. And what we've had this afternoon published in the Times is a really interesting report from Reset Tech, which is a non-profit that looks into these sort of big technology platforms, these social media platforms, and they found 80 different accounts offering deals, as you said, package holidays almost, for people who want to come to Britain, to simply get into Briton on a small boat. And it's not just the sheer number of accounts that are online, it's their reach as well. 233,000 combined followers around the world. Many of those will be potential clients or clients who have actually made it into Britain. 1.5 million or so likes on their videos. And over the course of their month-long investigation, only 9 of those accounts were taken down. 71 of them remained online. So when TikTok claims to be doing something, to be cracking down on the problem, well, until they were told, 71 of those accounts were still online. I mean, really, these big tech platforms, I've said it time and time again, in this studio, in the Sun newspaper, these tech platforms have to step up sooner rather than later, or this problem will only keep going on.
You make such a good point. It is on the tech platforms at this point, but it's also on the government who's got this soft touch policy. Will, I can see your eyes almost popping out of your head right now.
Yeah.
Look, with rage.
These people are laughing at the British government, and they are laughing at you, the British people. So many of these TikToks that you see, they're in the luxury hotel room watching the TV. They're doing those stupid kind of hand signals that teenagers do. It's like literally a brazen attempt to say, ha ha, we are taking advantage of you. Now, should the media, the tech platforms be doing more? Of course they should be. But this would not be happening if the British government made a very simple statement that says, if you get on a rubber dinghy, you will never, ever settle in this country. If they made that statement, you stop the boats arriving in the space of a week. Now, Shabana Mahmood can, talk loudly in Parliament. She can do the whole, kind of act tough routine as much as she wants. But until she says that, you will not solve this problem. Not to mention the whole legal framework, which makes it impossible to deport anyone really in this country, which I know we're getting to later.
You're right. If there was a detain and deport, then this business wouldn't exist. I mean, you are outnumbered here, Thomas, by Australians. We did have...
and it was a really comfortable dinghy that I got. Calais as well. Easy.
But we had a massive problem with illegal migration over there. And then we had to enact Operation Sovereign Borders, which ended the crossings in a week because, obviously, the people smugglers were told that if you send anyone across the channel, they're not stepping a foot onto Australia. And unfortunately, now that we've had 110 asylum applications, we've had over 35,000 come across the channel just this year. I think we're at breaking point, and I think that this TikTok thing, we don't realise. I think when we think about illegal immigrants, we just think, you know, they're these very, very vulnerable people who don't have access to an iPhone, don't have access to anything. No, no, these are craven individuals with a lot of chutzpah. I'll give it to them. You know, they've travelled between many different countries to seek out a better life, and there's nothing wrong with that. But this illegal route is not the way to do that. What would you say to the government said that they're cracking down on it? It doesn't seem like they are right now,
no,
Thomas.
and a very important point is that earlier this year the government said, pledged, promised, whatever word you want to use, this sort of advert on social media would be made illegal. People would be prosecuted, you'd be fined, you'd be sent to prison. It hasn't happened, and this is still happening. The only evidence you have to find to work out that a lot of the people coming into this country are technologically savvy is the fact that so many of them post videos of their own boat crossings on social media. Just last week, a man by the name of Alexandra 420, who we revealed had come into Britain on a small boat, filmed his own RNLI rescue and put it on TikTok. He was deported last week. And actually his internet footprint was so bad, he'd made a video instructing his followers how to kill their wives if they were unfaithful to them. He's now out of the country, but another one, a man called DG Osama, who was given asylum in this country and then went on holiday to Afghanistan for 8 weeks, posted that all over social media. I mean, these people aren't just tech savvy, some of them are influencers. I mean, they're actually content creators.
Yes, that guy had 70,000 followers, I remember, and it's only thanks to people like Thomas who expose this stuff day in and day out that these people are actually getting caught, in my opinion. Genuinely, I think it's only due to these reports that you're doing that there's light going on to this, because they're just getting away with it.
I agree with that. I would also note, when you look at these videos and photos that go up on social media, the amount of times you see these young men, and they're all young men, carrying weapons, whether they be guns or knives. There are several examples of videos that have gone up where they're almost, again, you know, how cool am I? I'm holding a gun as I'm in a rubber dinghy on my way to England. It's terrifying. It is terrifying, and it goes to the fundamental point that if you don't have an orderly immigration system, you do not know who is coming into the country, you do not know what they are bringing in, and you do not know what, well, sadly, we now do know what the consequences of that are for far too many women and children in this country.
Thomas, yeah, I mean, you can't battle against that point. I think it's true, but I think that TikTok is a very, very good wing of marketing for these people smugglers. It took me the other night. I was just kind of, this sounds a bit silly, but like I did get a bit bored, and I went on TikTok, where I spend actually a lot of my time, too much of my time.
And I thought,
yeah, exactly, yeah. I thought, oh, how long will it take me to find a people smuggler? It took me 5 minutes. I DM'd him. I posed as, you know, a Vietnamese migrant, and he sent me across the deals. That's how easy it is.
And it goes from about £1,500 just to go from Calais to Dover, or £10,000 to come all the way from Dakar, or a Vietnamese city, or Eritrea, if you can get out of Eritrea and come to the UK, or even Kabul. I mean, you can go halfway around the world and book all of the travel packages, all illegally, from your phone. I don't think the government and the Home Office have quite comprehended how far down the rabbit hole we are in terms of this sort of flagrant, blatant deal-making, which is completely against the law in basically every country, let alone just here.
And what I'm also aware of is, particularly when you look at this problem in the United States on the Mexican border before Trump solved that, if you're unable to pay that particular cartel the amount of money to be able to cross the border, you are effectively a slave for them, and they use you for, you know, whatever purposes they see fit. For example, drug smuggling. I would have no doubt that that would actually be a part of this story as well.
These are not clean operations. You know, this is people smuggling. This is dirty business. And I almost scoff when I hear, you know, Keir Starmer's empty platitudes of smash the gangs, because the gangs are international operations that are operating in a very, very sort of craven way that in many different countries with many different criminal circuits around them. So it's a very, when he says, oh, I'm going to smash the gangs, that doesn't mean popping a few boats, you know, at Calais. This is a massive thing that he's trying to dismantle, that he won't be able to. And, you know, when I think about DMing a people smuggler on TikTok, that's also how easy it is to maybe get some of these people that are on the front lines. It's not that hard in that way to get those more sort of those people who are putting the people on the boats.
There are camps in Calais. I've been to Calais.
Yeah, you have.
There are camps in Calais. And there's one side where it's the sort of asylum seeker side of people who are just there to fill up their water bottle, get some food, go into town on the bus. And there's another side, which I was told was the selling side. And that is where every once in a while you will see representatives, very low-level people in the absolute grand scheme of things, who go into the camps to try and find people and either sell them at a deal to come across the channel or upsell them or get them across quicker. And I was shown messages that people have been sent in the dead of night, come to this location and we'll launch the boat, we'll run into the sea. People there have tried 6, 7, 8, 9 times to come to Britain illegally. Either the weather wasn't good enough or they've been caught, on one of the rare occasions they are caught, by the French police. But it's not just an internet thing. These gangs are so big, they are so grand, they are so massive, and they are so organised, as the name suggests, that they can have boots on the ground in plain sight of the French police, who we're paying £480 million a year, by the way, for very little results. And still get away with it.
It's like the drug cartels. The drug cartels.
Oh, they're hand in hand, really.
Yeah. Well, many of them are. But in terms of the fact they are very successfully and efficiently run operations, and as long as there is going to be an incentive to enter this country, and by the way, Mahmoud's recent reforms still provide incentives to enter this country, you're going to have opportunistic criminals who form parts of these gangs who will set up operations to be able to make that a possibility. And if you smash one gang, to use Starmer's ridiculous language, another one will pop up the next day.
Well, look, I'm not trying to get tinfoil hat here, but there are a lot of people making a lot of money off people smuggling right now, and it does lead me to say, why isn't the government doing anything about it? I mean, none of their plans have worked thus far. I haven't heard of one single gang that they've smashed. I mean, I know that they've deported quite a few people under their various schemes, but it doesn't seem like they're doing enough with their promises. I am going to keep both of you because I'm enjoying this conversation way too much. We're going to talk about something a little bit more positive, actually, a bit of a win after these messages.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh, welcome back. Welcome back. Sorry, we're talking about potentially going and doing some secretive reporting. I don't want any of you guys to be privy to that until we do release it, but do stay tuned. Maybe we'll get it past the bosses, maybe one day. I want to talk about this Asylum win. Now, Thomas, talk me through this. What's been going on? You guys have had an actual win.
I know. As rare as they are few and far between on this sort of open justice, transparency crusade that Many of the newspapers, us included, have been on for a very long time. This is the very complex matter of immigration courts. That have been picked up in terms of reporting in the last year or so because of just the sheer number of mad decisions that get made about people, about migration, about precedents as well on the interpretation of laws laid down by basically the last 5 governments, all the way back into the sort of founding of the tribunals quite a long time ago. And what you have is a very complicated system with appeal after appeal after appeal. And what we've managed to win from the judiciary as such is that of the 2 tiers of asylum tribunals, currently the upper tier is published. And now that means it has to be appealed twice, effectively.
Right, OK.
What we've won is that the first tier decisions will now be published as well. And that means that we will have a wealth more decisions to look through, to sift through. And these decisions do mean something because there are so many cases of either convicted criminals, people who are known to the intelligence services, going through these courts, and if it ends at the first tier, if that process ends at the first tier, there's no published record.
And not to mention the activist barristers that we continue to be privy to. I mean, you know, Lord Justice Bean with the Epping case, that was kind of a separate thing, but saying, you know, the rights of the asylum seekers are above the rights of the British people. We need to be exposing these judges for their weird, strange, confected judgments that, you know, then we have to, then I was doing some research and finding, you know, oh, Lord Justice Bean is tied to this pro-Palestinian charity or this and that. So you're right. I think it's a massive victory for the Sun because we'll be able to, you know, bring truth to justice.
Well, this is it. Sunlight is so often the best disinfectant for these types of things, especially in the court system and especially in the immigration tribunals, because, I mean, just to give you a sort of rubbish version of Top of the Pops of some of the people that have been allowed to stay by these courts.
Go off. I'm sure our audience will want to hear that.
Abdul Azedi, those of you who remember last year, the Clapham Alkaline attacker, attacked a woman and her child in South London. He was allowed to stay by a first-tier immigration tribunal, meaning that ruling wasn't published. He only knew 4 of Jesus' 12 disciples, and the judge still believed he genuinely converted to Christianity.
Oh, he had one of those. One of those baptisms in the bathtub.
Yes, in a bathtub.
But he ended up having a Muslim ceremony for his
funeral.
Keep in mind, the new Archbishop of Canterbury is now going to make it even easier to baptise incoming illegal migrants. But sorry,
I could talk about that all night.
And number 2, a paedophile from Pakistan who a court ruled couldn't be deported because he was an alcoholic, and drinking as a Muslim in Pakistan is illegal. He said the prison conditions were so bad in his home country it would be tantamount to torture. He won. Albanian criminal Clevis Disher was allowed to remain in the UK. Part of his case for staying was that his 10-year-old son would not eat foreign chicken nuggets.
Remember that one, guys? I think they do.
February feels a long time ago.
Yes.
A serial sex offender migrant who was allowed to stay by a first-tier tribunal judge, again meaning no record of that decision was ever published. After that decision was made, he went on to be jailed for having sex with a 15-year-old girl. Also on his criminal record, he'd stolen a car, carried a knife and beaten someone up. Lovely person. Shame we couldn't deport him. A violent Polish crook man called Konrad Makoki, he was allowed to stay by a first-tier tribunal judge, again meaning there was no record of this until it was appealed to the higher court. He was a, quote, father figure to his nephew, had to be a role model to the boy despite being a violent criminal. Again, it may feel like a very small, complicated administrative point, but in the grand scheme of things, all of these cases, so many more of them now will be thrown open to public discourse. Taxpayers are funding these judges' salaries. Many of them are on £150,000 a year plus to make these decisions. Correct. Their judgments and the reasons behind their judgments have to be open to public scrutiny, and I'm very glad that that's what we've been able to achieve.
Three words would make this country immeasurably better, and they are not our problem. I couldn't care less if you are a violent sex offender, and because you're a violent sex offender, you're more likely to be treated poorly in Afghanistan. You should be treated poorly. You should be, you know, like, whatever happens to you, happens to you. I couldn't care less. But unfortunately, we don't have that mentality at the moment. But this is the other key thing. Because we have ideologically captured judges who will make these sorts of silly rulings because of vague laws like the European Convention on Human Rights, which is enabled by the Human Rights Act, you are going to continue to have these problems. The fundamental issue is the legal framework. And until you repeal those laws, you do not solve this problem. That's why Labor will not solve this problem.
Well, I think what the Sun's done here is a small kind of step in the right direction. When I say small step, it's actually a massive win. But they have constantly been exposing these soft-touch judges that have been allowing these foreigners to stay. Under our dime, by the way, 034449911000 is the number. If you are absolutely enraged by that shopping list of sex crimes and sort of violent criminals that we've been embracing with open arms in this country, it's actually, it enrages me to no end. I've got a lot of different messages and calls about this. A lot of people are very happy with all the work the Sun's been doing, which I'm happy to see. But, you know, you shouldn't have even had to bang the drum like this. You know, you really shouldn't have. So do you think that we're going to see really bad things come out now that we'll be able to be sort of privy to everything that's going on in the court systems, or will this be holding them to account? Well,
I mean, look, the ones that you get at the ones that make it to appeal stage, the ones that make it to publication, many of those are shocking enough already. There are convicted murderers in there. I mean, you can go back and search yourselves on the archives if you really want to. And so, you know, transplanting, I mean, there's sort of 80,000 cases a year go through those courts. There's 83 courtrooms in the country, 12 different places. I mean, just by sheer numbers alone, it's very likely we're going to see some judgments made that by people who really do need to be held to account and currently aren't.
And Thomas, this is a wonderful piece of reporting, but I am calling it a qualified win, because if some of those stupid stories that you just read out don't lead to change, then quite frankly, nothing will short of a change of government. If chicken nuggets remains an excuse to stay in this country, unfortunately, it looks like we're going to need something more than more examples to get to change.
Well, maybe when Lord Justice Bean or Justice Hollyrod or any of those woke justices that I can think of off the top of my head make their next decision, maybe they'll think, oh, Thomas might write a really damning article that will be on the front page of The Sun about me. Maybe I shouldn't let this triple convicted sex offender, that's a hypothetical case, by the way, past and just let him back into the country. I think we do really need to hold these people accountable, because for a very long time they have been allowed to push their liberal woke ideology onto their judgments, and it's only led to more sort of sexual assaults, more horrible things happening out on the streets, you know, just like we've seen with the acid killer. I remember that, and just not even wanting to leave the house that day because I just felt so unsafe. So there are real life consequences to these judges that sit in their warm, cozy boxes and decide things. Thomas Godfrey, it's been such a pleasure to have you in the studio. That's Thomas Godfrey from The Sun. We'll be back with Will Kingston, and we'll be taking your calls. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Get them in. Let's talk about anything. Sharia courts, TikTok people smugglers, this major asylum win and all those judgments. I want to hear all about it after these messages.
In terms of your question around taxes, there are no additional tax rises needed beyond the ones that I've set out.
Don't need to increase taxes. I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes.
I will not increase your national insurance. I will not increase your VAT, and I will not increase your income tax.
We don't need to come back for more. We've done that now. We've wiped the slate clean.
The economic circumstances have declined, deteriorated since a year ago. We are having to look at taxes and spending.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, I've got a lot of calls, I've got a lot of texts, but I got a few lines open. So 03444991000 is the number. Do give me a call. Talk about anything. I don't really believe in questions of the day. I just believe in getting on the blower and saying whatever the hell you want, because it is Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. I've apparently got a voice note from Brigitte.
I've lived here in France for 18 years, since 2007. With regards to these Muslims that want Sharia law over here, well, from my experience, I can tell you that they can want all the Sharia law they like, but the French will not stand for it. When it comes to their heritage and their culture especially, they are very, very strong on it. It's all about solidarity. So I wish that the UK and Ireland would stand up and be strong on their heritage and their culture as much as they do here in France.
Look, Brigitte, I couldn't agree with you more. And from the sound of your name, it seems like you've got a little bit of French heritage there. I mean, you're completely right. I think the French won't sit down and take it. And the issue is, you know, we start to see the rise of Le Pen. Well, that's not an issue. I actually quite like Le Pen and her policies. But we do start to see then Macron try and silence her, try and put her behind bars. I think we might see a little bit of that in this country if we're not careful, a sort of silencing of the rising political tidal wave that's happening. You couldn't hear that because you were having some earpiece issues, but Brigitte was basically saying the French won't put up with Sharia law being implemented in their country. Do you agree with that?
Well, yeah, of course. I think any sensible person would agree with that. And by the way, Samara, I don't think we can say that we may see this coming in the UK down the line. Something like 30 people every single day are arrested in this country for things that they say online.
Well, I'm more targeting of people like Nigel Farage, etc.
Yeah,
in a political way. But you're right, it's already happening.
But even in that instance,
you're right.
in that instance, we've already seen milkshakes, for example, go to Farage. We've already seen,
thankfully, only milkshakes.
Well, again, there is a precedent that has been set that, well, okay, it's okay to start with a milkshake, and before you know it, suddenly it just takes one nutcase to go out and do something incredibly dangerous. I think it's a real concern, and the fact that Starmer reduced Nigel Farage's security detail, I think only days after Charlie Kirk's assassination.
75%.
That's right. It is disgusting, quite frankly. Absolutely disgusting.
Let's go over to Paul in Hartlepool. Paul, welcome to the show. You want to talk about shoplifting?
Yeah, I was watching the House of Lords debating it, right? And I thought to myself, I'd love to be sat in there and put an amendment in that the country will have a referendum on bringing back the badge for people who attack shoplifters, ambulance workers, firemen, and it wouldn't cost a great deal to run either, because once the word gets round that you're going to get lashed, right? Which was it used to be in the 50s and whatever. Yeah. Once that word gets around, half the shoplifters will disappear, and the other half, you know, they'll just take the punishment. And if that doesn't do the job, jail them. You know, I mean, what it needs, this country, it needs a kick up the backside, basically. You know, a massive, you know, this is what's going to happen. We're going to tell you now. You know, I mean, I just think I was watching the TV the other day, and a guy was beating somebody up in a shop. That guy should have been hauled out and basically lashed, I think.
Well, the other thing, Paul, and this is something which Peter Blexley has been very strong on. I know I've contributed to...
Did you hear that, Will? Sorry, I'm just wondering. Because you've got the earpiece. Okay, no, all good. Did you hear the call?
I heard bits and pieces of it.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, I was just wondering, my mind was going in another direction.
The broader vibe is, and Paul, I think, to the extent I could hear him, was spot on.
Yes.
But something which Peter Blexley's been very strong on is that you no longer see policing the streets anymore. Walking the streets, you don't have that sort of visibility, and so effectively you feel like criminals now just have free reign to go out and do whatever they want.
I think you're right, and I also think that we really signed our own sort of death note when we said, yeah, no problem, 200 quid, that's the sort of bar, and it's not shoplifting. That's when you start to see society really fall apart, because people do think that it's soft. The definition of soft touch Britain is saying you can steal £200 worth of things and you won't face any consequences for it. And the amount of times that I've been going to the shops, I usually go at 11 p.m. at night because that's when I finish work, and I see people just piling stuff on top and running out. It's a horrible environment to create. You're right, Paul. If we don't crack down on the small things, then the big things will get completely sort of out of control. It's a gateway to other crimes. Would you agree with that, Will?
Yeah, I would. And I think, again, it just goes to show that this government is out of touch with the real problems that are facing the British people. Crime is something that people see day in and day out, whether it be, the fact... And it's not even the actual crimes being committed. It is the sense of fear that people feel in places like London and like Birmingham every single day. It's that lack of comfort holding your phone as you walk down the main street.
Yes.
It's the feeling that you've got to keep your eye on your bag in the pub at all times. Even if you don't have first-hand experience of actual criminal behaviour, you do not feel safe in your own city anymore.
Nope.
And you don't feel comfortable in the way that I think you once did, perhaps, say, 20 years ago.
Do you feel safe in your city, in your town? 0344 499 1000 is the number. Do give me a call, because I do feel like when you start to feel unsafe, that's when everything just falls apart. I think that's when you properly know that this country has lost it. I know that I don't feel safe walking the street at all. Even in broad daylight now, I just don't feel it. And you know what? London, which is the city that I live in, never used to be that way. Even 5 years ago, it didn't used to feel like that. Just now, I start to think, okay, who's got a knife on the train? Maybe it's my paranoia, maybe because I work in the news, but do you feel like that? Give me a call, because I'd love to chat about it. I think we need to, as Thomas said, we need to put a bit of sunlight and sanitize this whole thing and say, hey, this is what's going on right now in the country. Starmer's in cosy little Westminster out that window, not caring about how you feel when you drive to work or when you train into work.
Yeah, no, I couldn't have said it better myself, but it's also why the Fraser Nelsons of this world infuriate me when they come out and say, you know what, people have never had it better. You know what, crime rates on the whole are going down. When you actually don't look at the detail that sits beneath the high-level data that these people come out with. Are there less people punching on in pubs now compared to 30 years ago? Yes. But at the same time, sexual assault crime has gone up. Knife crime has gone up. What's the one variable that's changed in the last 20 years that would lead to more sexual assault and more knife crime? We all know what it is. It is mass migration, and that is something which too many people are too scared to openly admit.
Oh, well, Sadiq Khan doesn't want to admit it. I just read a horrifying article this week where he actually penned it himself, and he said that London is the safest and best city in the world.
Yeah.
Shut up, Sadiq. I don't want to hear it from you, genuinely. Look, the UK taxpayers, they're on the hook. We're funding £14 billion of foreign aid. I'm going to talk to Darren Grimes from Reform UK about that. Reform's got some plans on how to scrap it. We're also going to talk to Georgina in London. She is a family favourite of Talks. So we're going to get into that after these messages.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to the Political Asylum. I'm Samara Gill. I'm in for Kevin O'Sullivan. Please don't adjust your sets or turn it off. It is a woman now in the seat. Oh my gosh, a DEI hire. She's an immigrant too. She's an Australian. Oh my goodness. Please do continue to listen though. I promise you I'm more nationalistic than most people out on the street there. Look, the UK, it spent £5.2 million funding an Ethiopian Spice Girls.
We shouldn't laugh because it is actually, like, insane. It's insane.
Among other things, 110,000 on gender disinformation conferences in Kenya. We're going to get into that with Darren Grimes after we chat to Georgina. Georgina in London, welcome to the show.
Well, good evening, Samara. Good evening. Well, I've been listening to everything that's been going on with the Labour Party and the mutiny that's going on within it at the moment, and also the state of the country. Samara, I'm so fed up with everything, and I feel so sorry for the whole of the British population. Honestly, it's going from bad to worse. I mean, even Labour MPs are trying to oust Keir Starmer out of the Labour Party. So in essence, he's a dead man walking. And after giving his own endorsement to his prime ministerial abilities in his little address a day or two ago, that surely signed the end for his prime ministerial position. As if he gives anyone his full confidence, then it's the end of their political career. We know that we are to expect a lot of bad things from the upcoming budget due to Rachel Reeves breaking budget tradition and letting the cat out of the bag last week. So we're well aware that we're yet again going to be hammered by yet more tax rises. But this is what we've come to expect from this U-turning, flip-flopping, policy-shifting government. But yet they still will not cut the ever-increasing welfare bill, the absolutely astronomical outlay on migrant spending, ridiculous foreign aid handouts, and the nonsensical net-zero madness. Money that would be better spent, Samara, on, let's say, getting our depleted defences up and running.
Now, how about that? Like, that's going to happen under this government. You're right, Georgina, you make so many good points, as per usual. Well, you wanted to chime in there.
Yeah, Georgina, beautifully articulated. You mentioned that you think Keir Starmer is a dead man walking. My concern is, and look, I think we can all agree he has been a woefully poor Prime Minister. But I don't exactly see a lot of talent that sits behind him in the Labor Party. Do you actually think if we were to get, you know, a Shabana Mahmood or an Ed Miliband, heaven forbid, as a prime ministerial replacement?
Well, Ed seems to be the favourite. I know everyone bangs on about Wes Streeting, but within the party, Ed is very popular because he's very lefty.
I am still backing Ange as the dark horse to come through as potentially an option. But, Georgina, my question to you would be, do you actually think changing the leader would make a difference to all of those problems that you laid out?
To be quite honest with you, well, I think the only thing that's going to help our country now is a change of government. Yep. And I know that's very unorthodox, and it was a few hundred years ago that it happened before. But I think we're in such a dire state now. I mean, you know, the money is being spent on ridiculous things. The things that you shouldn't, you know, £190 million for condoms. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
we've got
the Pakistan family planning. You couldn't make it up.
Absolutely. But Samara, we've got people in this country, veterans who fought for our country, for our liberty, for our freedom, sleeping on the street. And we are housing third world migrants, which I've got to be honest, are unwanted within this country. We don't want them. They shouldn't be here. Yep. The moment they put their foot on our terra firma, they are breaking our law.
It boils my blood, Georgina. It seriously does. Thank you so much for your call. I've actually, interestingly, I've got Darren Grimes on the line. He is obviously Reform UK's deputy leader of Durham Council. He's someone who does want to do something about this foreign aid. I was just about to say a really bad word there. This dumpster fire, this absolute dumpster fire of what is going on with our foreign aid. I mean, I've got some crazy stats here, but let's welcome Darren to the show first. Darren, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I feel like I'm sandwiched in between a friendship here.
We go back.
Darren was my television mentor, which probably explains my very middling skills on the screen.
Darren, thank you so much.
I still miss my Willie, Samara. I still miss my Willie, so there is that.
Don't we all? Look, the UK taxpayers are on the hook. They're for millions of pounds. I've got a bit of a list here. I don't want to get into it too much, but, you know, we've got 114 million on inclusive green enterprises in India, 9.5 million on accountability and inclusion in the Congo, 5 million on transforming feminist funding in Iraq, and a 500k fleet of Porsches for Albanian jails. I mean, our foreign funding is out of control. Now, Nigel Farage has unveiled a plan to basically fill the $25 billion black hole that Rachel Reeves moans about and laments about day in, day out. He said, why don't we just cut it? Why don't we cut it by 90%? Why don't we just give $1 billion out, which in my mind is actually still too much.
1 billion too many.
Darren, what is Reform's plan for cutting foreign aid? Because there's nothing that gets our callers more wound up than foreign aid spending.
Absolutely, and rightly so. You know, I think both the Tories and the Labour Party have a lot to answer for in this regard. You know, you mentioned that there was, I remember back when I worked in Westminster, that there were salt lessons to the Chinese, or, you know, being paid for by British taxpayers on having too much salt in their diet. We're basically stuck in a cult of compassion in Britain, right? Where actually being kind is better than being seen to be good to the British people. It's a self-harm ritual where hard-working British families, you know, those in County Durham who don't have a lot in life but do work damn well hard, are being squeezed right now until their eyes water, right? And the government can basically congratulate themselves on handing out as much of our money to foreign governments and foreign nationals as possible. Even foreign nationals who have entered this country illegally is a pound too much being spent on foreign nationals, in my view. But the real problem goes to the very heart of the political class being one that worships that word, compassion. As long as someone else pays the price, it ain't them paying the price. As long as they can feel that warm glow of virtue, you know, the bricks in Durham don't actually matter ultimately, as long as the tax bill keeps actually landing as a consequence of those bricks being laid. And we are the only party willing to actually say we need to be as radical about this, on this, as possible. You know, these are the things that politicians normally whisper around dinners after one too many glasses of wine. Charity begins at home. I have been told that for as long as I've been on this planet, but at the moment it doesn't even begin. We're getting out, Samara. We get absolutely bare minimum. So the 25 billion quid in savings, it's quite astonishing that we can even find a figure like 25 billion from such a bill. But you mentioned it, 100 million quid to Pakistan for family planning. I couldn't give a flying flamingo about the family affairs of people in Pakistan. Not my problem. The people of Durham, the people of Britain, they're my problem.
Darren, I'm sorry, Samara, but I've been waiting to grill Darren on live radio for some time. I don't disagree, mate, with anything you've said, obviously, but we both know that this is low-hanging fruit and it will be popular with the Reform base, probably popular with the vast majority of the nation. We also know that this doesn't come anywhere near addressing the mountains of debt that this country is currently dealing with. I think there's something like £110 billion a year that's just going on interest to service the national debt. So my question is
this not a good start, though? I mean, we're spending 14 billion.
It is a good start. Don't let him off the hook. It is radical. It is a good start, Darren. I agree with you. But above and beyond this, above and beyond scrapping net zero, which is also fantastic, and above and beyond basically stopping migrants from getting benefits, I haven't heard enough yet from Reform on the spending cuts that will be needed to actually address the dire financial situation this country is in. When are we going to start hearing some really tough cuts from Reform?
Well, I would argue that actually the personal independence payments cuts are some of the most radical tax benefits welfare cuts that we've ever heard from a British opposition politician. You know, moving the non-serious cases like anxiety back into back to work programs instead of actually not focusing on those who have real disabilities being protected by the welfare safety net. You know, that's saving £3.5 billion. It is grotesque, actually, Will, and I do agree with you that we have actually managed to become so desensitized to the numbers of billions of pounds being spent on these things that they seem pretty abstract, but actually they're not. They do matter. 25 billion quid is a lot of money. The send costs that we are facing as a council, for example, are bankrupting local authorities around the country, send being special educational needs children. Now, Will, you could say your child's got anxiety these days and manage to get them a free taxi to school. That's a statutory requirement for local authorities. There are so many ways in which a reform government coming in, trimming the fat, being able to actually reform the system will save billions. And don't doubt how big a saving scrapping net zero will be. It was Philip Hammond, not exactly himself, a tax-cutting chancellor when he was Chancellor of the Exchequer, who said it would cost the economy £1 trillion. That is a huge, huge sum of money. We'll all be walking around in loincloths and living in caves if actually they get their way. And I do not have a summer body ready, Samara, for a loincloth.
You and me
I don't
both.
know about you.
You and me both, Darren. Seriously, oh my God, these British winters, they're not great when I have to fly back to Australia for Christmas and sort of look at myself in a bikini. It's a lot of self-hatred. But anyway, you know, the thing is, back onto foreign aid, you know, I don't agree with you, Will. And, you know, I think reform always gets bundled in with the Conservatives quite a bit. I've always thought of reform as actually economically quite liberal and socially more conservative. That's what I've always thought their policies were. I might be wrong, but that's how I've seen them. And I think that they just want to spend the money in the right way. I mean, they've got a whole Doge department dedicated to sort of blasting all these crazy spendings in the council and sort of having a look at
I don't think you can pigeonhole us. I don't think reform can be pigeonholed in that way to say that we have economic liberalism. Because, for example, we want to nationalise British steel because we see it as a key strategic asset that's needed for any functioning economy, and especially one that could potentially face war in our lifetimes. You know, that is a genuine prospect. And we do need to have these key elements within our country. But there are many people who would disagree with me vehemently and say that the market will ultimately provide even at wartime. So, you know, I don't think we can be pigeonholed. I think we're pro-common sense, Samara. That's basically what I would argue we are, because what we have right now isn't compassion for Britain. It's actually total insanity for Britain. While the whole of the rest of the world subsidise and put their people first, we have children who, you know, are struggling at the moment, unable to read and write and all the rest of it, in completely destitute conditions that wouldn't have been shrugged at in Victorian Britain.
Now,
completely agree. And just to add to that point, I was outside a migrant hotel just a couple of weeks ago reporting, and I spoke to a mother who said, you know, I actually have to choose between giving my child a meal for her first lunch break or an after-school snack. That's how skint I am right now. And literally across the road from me are migrants receiving 3 meals a day paid for by her effectively, because she goes to work and she cleans toilets. So you're right, that is on the ground what's going on, just probably about 30 kilometres from Westminster. So yeah,
compassion,
you're right.
Samara. Where is your compassion?
Yeah.
That's what Labour would say.
This is the thing, that sort of suicidal empathy, that whole kindness and compassion rhetoric, which started under Blair and then was continued under the Conservatives, is now so ingrained in the institutions and in the instinct of the nation that, Darren, you know as well as I do, that reform is going to be attacked mercilessly every week for the next 3.5 years. We saw it from The Guardian yesterday. Stupid stories coming out.
It just has been by you, William.
Well, no.
Where are your priorities, man?
You know,
Save Britain. Don't reform.
I am, to quote, you know, the great, you know, Bill O'Reilly on Fox News, I'm just asking questions, Darren. The question that I have for you is, how are you guys thinking about how you're going to combat the smear campaigns that will say that reform are evil, that they're racist, that they're not kind, that they're not compassionate, all that sort of stuff that you know is coming from the mainstream media?
Well, actually, we've just had it over the last 24 hours with The Guardian publishing 15,000 words in its pages on how Nigel Farage allegedly said something when in the 1970s when he was at school that they deemed to be anti-Semitic and all the rest of it. Exactly. Grasping at straws, desperation in extremis, all the rest of it. It totally is. But I, quite frankly, will not take lectures from a paper that has given succour and support to those who want to aid and abet Britain's enemies at every twist and turn. You know, Jeremy Corbyn had a free pass. Owen Jones has had a free pass in that paper for far too long. The British people aren't going to have truck with that. And I think actually these smears, these baseless smears, are they're not landing anymore. So they're going to come in thick and fast. I've lost count of the number of times I've been told I'm a Nazi, I'm racist, I'm a fascist, all these other things. I'm homophobic even. I've had to call up all my ex-boyfriends, Samara, and say, look, I've got something to tell you. I'm homophobic. They said, Darren, you never are. Honestly, it's absurd. And I think the country recognises now that it is absurd and that they are baseless, desperate attempts at undermining what is a case against the consensus that has been built up since Tony Blair. We need to undo the Blairite project.
All my ex-boyfriends. I'm not convinced there would have been that many calls, mate. But
how dare you?
Excuse me, Will. You're about to get banished from this studio. Be nice to my lovely guest. Look, I agree with you, though. You know what? Where was The Guardian calling out the anti-Semitism of Keir Starmer when he recognised Palestine as a state? I mean, I don't want to be lectured on anti-Semitism by them. I mean, they've absolutely got no place to be calling it out.
Can I also just ask Darren quickly, because you did mention the loony left. You mentioned Corbyn and you mentioned the Greens. The Greens are going up in the polls. Polanski is getting some cut through with the media. I'm actually thinking of putting a cheeky bet on having the next, in 2029, a Reform government and a Greens opposition. How much of a threat do you think the Greens are to Labor on the left?
Labour on the left, they absolutely are a threat. But I would actually argue, certainly in the County Durham context, that it's the Liberal Democrats. You know, the Liberal Democrats are doing incredibly well, and those who actually think that the Green Party is nuttier than a fruitcake. I mean, let's not forget, you only have to tear through the pages of the Google search a few times to actually find an article in The Sun from this august institution of News UK, where he actually said he could expand a woman's breasts by using his mind. You know, I think ultimately people are just going to laugh at that. The loony left, of course, they will vote for someone like him. There'll be a lot of young people do, but don't discount the number of young people who don't feel they have a future, who see British industry that they want to work in destroyed, who decimated at every twist and turn. Every day we have a new story of a new factory that's closed down. That's fewer opportunities for young people who will come out and vote for Reform UK. I think you'll be surprised by the number of 16-year-olds when Starmer does gerrymander the electoral cycle, who do actually come out and vote Reform, especially in areas like the northeast of England.
No, you make a really good point. I think Starmer thought that he was sort of engineering the next election by allowing 16-year-olds the vote. I don't think he's met a 16-year-old. They make me look like a liberal snowflake, to be honest. Most of them do that I've met. You know, they're quite conservative, let's just say, because they're quite hard done by. They're the post 9/11 generation, and they've been absolutely slammed with sort of fiscal drama after fiscal drama. Not to mention they grew up in the 2010s where the woke brigade and the purple hair and the Tumblr and all that. I can tell you myself, it wasn't fun. That's definitely what made me into a sort of
but there are still plenty of those young loonies out there, and what Starmer didn't work out at the time is that he's splitting his own vote amongst young people towards the Greens, and if Corbyn can somehow get his act together, that party as well. Like, surely this was politically an act of self-sabotage and just political incompetence to lower the voting age.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course it was. I mean, everything that this man has ever done, you know, he thought that it would look tough if he actually said, I'll take the winter fuel payment away from pensioners and then doing farmers' inheritance tax. Actually, the country just turned around and said, you cannot prioritise this whilst you prioritise foreigners who are coming here. We're spending, you know, almost 10 billion quid, the asylum bill, and it's going up and up and up, not showing any signs of abating whatsoever. And they're seeing their communities completely transformed. There isn't isn't, I think, any prospectus that he could offer the British people now that doesn't look like a complete continuation of a betrayal. No one believes Shabana Mahmood. You know, it's not going to actually cut through with the British public. They've had the chance, they royally blew it, and after 14 years of Tory government, I don't even think they looked as dead in the water as the Labour Party does right now.
All right,
and
put your money...
we ride that baby, because I swear to God, we need to get this government out of office. It is the very worst in my lifetime, and I say that with my hand well and truly on my heart.
Put your money where your mouth is. When will there be a Labour leadership challenge?
I think actually there'll probably be one after the May elections. I think the May elections will be so bad for them if they allow them to go ahead. But, you know, I'd argue that there are many people in Reform, Will, and I'm not speaking out of class in saying this, who actually believe that there'll be many elections don't go ahead, that they'll continue this farce of saying a move to being a unitary authority is enough to cancel an election for another year. And that's how desperate they are.
All this tough talk Shabana Mahmood kind of, you know, came up to the lectern and lectured us on. She's just posted about 9 hours ago. We are open. We are a tolerant and generous country. New, safe and legal routes for genuine refugees. I mean, I was on the BBC on Monday, I think it was, properly in the lion's den, and I was...
We forgive you for that, by the way.
Well, I thought I had to... It kind of it shows how desperate they are for balance these days, isn't it? But one of the Labour MPs was just waffling on about how we need to make sure that asylum claimants can actually apply from any country in the world. I mean, this is actually how the Labour backbenchers are thinking. She was livid at Shabana behind the scenes.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But, you know, they're saying that they're copying the asylum policies of Denmark, which has been pretty robust. I tell you what, they're not. They're copying the migration and asylum policies of Denmark Hill, you know, the leafy sort of suburbs that they actually want to appease to. And Shabana, in making that tweet, Samara, is actually saying, I am in complete thrall to the Labour backbenchers who are committing mutiny as we speak. Your previous caller, Gillian, I believe her name was absolutely right in saying that they're fighting like rats in a sack behind the scenes. Some of them doing it in public, and it's only going to get worse. So, you know, a plague on all their houses, I say, because both the Labour Party and the Tories have had their chance. You know, I say actually it's time for fundamental change, because if we don't get this right by 2029, it won't just be the foreign aid budget that spirals out of control. I think it'll be trust and faith in democracy itself, and a fundamental disillusionment with the British state that will lead to some pretty nasty consequences. So we need to get this right for the country, for Britain, and it isn't, I think, hyperbole to say we need to do it to save Britain, because we are in and drinking in, as Will would know a thing or two about, Last Chance Saloon.
Darren, you speak a lot of sense. We're going to go to break. I want to keep you just for literally 5 minutes more, because I've got another story I want to hear your thoughts on after these messages.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, Katie says, Darren, I joined Reform last December and I agree with a lot of what they like to do. However, I live in North Yorkshire and the teenagers there are evil. They target kids with additional needs. They gang jump fight kids they don't like. They record it. They share it to all their friends. My point is there are rare and extreme cases where children do get transport to school due to their fears of being targeted by bullies, and schools support and keep them safe and put them on reduced timetables, and the kids get away with it. My autistic teen was targeted by over 30 students, probably more. We had early help referrals, but then she ended up in Leeds, incubated due to overdosing on my hidden medication that she found overnight due to desperation of wanting to be gone. We need less foreign aid money and more money put into services, and we need all the services being overhauled to run this country correctly. Then a lot of British people that would be better off. That's from Katie in North Yorkshire. I'm not sure if you were you heard that, Darren. That's quite interesting, isn't it? I think that
it is.
Yeah. What was your response to that?
It is, Samara. But I mean, what I would say to that is fundamentally, I think we've lost all semblance of discipline in this country. You know, kids simply aren't being disciplined. Antisocial behaviour in parts of the country like mine is spiralling out of control, and I think it's because we're scared to actually reprimand children these days. Teachers are terrified in classrooms. They cannot do it right for doing wrong in classrooms these days. We've lost all semblance of being able to tell a child that bullying a young autistic kid is totally wrong, sickening and all the rest of it, and they're getting away with it. So they're thinking that this behaviour is totally A-OK. And that's why there are so many calls on so many issues from, you know, we need to bring back some semblance of sanity on being able to discipline children. And they're talking about banning smacking and all the rest of it. I was smacked as a kid, Samara, and it didn't do me any harm.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I had those sort of hippy-dippy parents that were like, if the child's crying, hug them harder. Well, we see how that ended out. I become an absolute rat bag. So I think I agree with you, Darren.
In that case, Darren, we'll put your personality defects down to other issues, not the smacking. I've got a question going back to the topic that we were speaking about before the break, and that is on Shabana Mahmood's recent announcements on illegal immigration and Reform's response to it. Now, it's a relatively minor criticism, but it goes to the communications following that announcement. And I saw a tweet this morning, which in some respect was funny, which was Shabana Mahmood with superimposed photos of Nigel in her bedroom and having all the Reform merch, suggesting that Shabana is aping Reform's policies, when I don't think she is. When she talks about things like more safe and legal routes, I think she's missing the mood of the public. I don't think people want more refugees in this country. Similarly, she's still unwilling to say, if you get on a dinghy, you will never, ever settle here. And similarly, she's not willing to say that we're going to detain refugees and keep people, and particularly women and children, safe. So I see some fundamental differences between the Reform policy, as I understand it, and the Labor policy, and I'm not convinced that it was the right approach from Reform yesterday to basically suggest that Labor are aping them.
No, not at all. What they said, it's a play on the Labour Party falling apart over this, with her being accused of being Reform light by her own benches. You saw the same thing happen to Keir Starmer when he gave a speech and it was referred to as Enoch Powell. Yeah. You know, the idea that, one, Enoch Powell actually was able to string a sentence together, but putting that to one side, you know, the merits of talking about these kinds of issues, there are some things that Shabana has said that I agree with. Fine, absolutely. But when they're not suggesting for 1 second that Shabana is actually going to join Reform, because fundamentally she disagrees with everything we want to do, i.e. leave the ECHR and actually be able to say to Euro judges, you cannot dictate the policies of a sovereign parliament. And that is what is happening right now. So until the Labour Party comes out full-throated and says, we're going to leave the ECHR, we're going to leave the UN Convention on refugees and all these other things that actually hold us back, bind our hands as a country, like, dare I say, Australia managed to untangle itself from various conventions and other things, to be able to genuinely take back control of its own territorial waters. We need to do exactly the same thing. And the Labour Party, you're on a hiding to absolutely nout if you believe that Shabana Mahmood is going to actually manage to coalesce the Labour Party to get behind an ECHR position. You know, I think what highlights this point more than any other was the Labour MP for Folkestone in Kent. Yes, the day before yesterday, he came out and he condemned Shabana Mahmood's speech, right? He condemned its lack of kindness, compassion, and all these other watchwords of the moment. Kent, you're talking... I have a woman on our council, right, that came up here from Kent, who knows people who have been in their homes and had migrants who've just landed on the beaches, walk through their estates looking for somewhere to go. You know, the idea that the people of Folkestone are going to get behind this Labour Party human rights lawyer, and that's what he is, exactly like Starmer. They've got more human rights lawyers than they've got voters at this current moment, at this current juncture. It's absurd. And so, yeah, Will, it was a play, it was funny, it wasn't serious. You know, take us with a smile.
The nuanced humour of the Reform X account is obviously a bit too nuanced for me. But
well, you don't have a sense of humour, Will, that's why.
One thing I would ask on that topic is, and I said this earlier on the show with Samara, that it is fundamentally the legal framework that the United Kingdom has become entangled in. That is the problem that stops us from stopping the boats. The ECHR and the Human Rights Act. Do you think there is any chance that Labor touches the ECHR or the Human Rights Act in this term of government?
I think that the Labour Party would sooner vote to scrap Trident, Britain's nuclear deterrent, than they would actually get out of the clutches of the ECHR. To be perfectly frank, and I do not wish to doubt the sincerity of politicians, Will, you know me better than that, but actually there are far too many people in the Parliamentary Labour Party that have made very good livings, that have received King's Council titles to their names, knighthoods and all the rest of it, from being these lovely, kind, compassionate human rights lawyers, that actually they would never in a month of Sundays vote for something that would be ultimately so detrimental to their own future prospects outside of Parliament. But that's me being cynical, Will. People can make of that what they will.
No, I agree with that, and that's the same argument you can make for net zero. If you scrap net zero, a lot of people are going to lose a lot of money because it's been a grip for a very long time.
I think we can also still see that Tony Blair's got his absolute claws still very much in Westminster, and he's still kind of operating a little bit behind the scenes. I don't say that in a conspiratorial type of way, but, you know, a lot of his policies, I don't want to really get into it, but, you know, the Fabian Society, etc., it still operates in a very strong way, and there is no way that the ECHR is going to be left under their watch. So yeah, it's not going to happen. I mean, I just think that, as you said, Darren, it's reform light, whatever Shabana's trying to put forward, and it's not even that. I mean, she's obviously cracked down on Angola, Namibia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo with her new sort of plan. What about Pakistan, who's had 11,000 asylum claims, topping the charts? They've got a space program. They're not at war or anything like that. They're a completely safe country. There's no one fleeing from a war-torn place coming from there. And then think about Iran, which is a very high-risk country, which we actually had a foiled terror plot towards the Israeli embassy happen. 3 of them were in an asylum hotel this year. So those are the countries she should be looking at, but clearly she doesn't want to upset some particular voter bases.
And can I add, Pakistan also has a Trans Rights Act, and they've got a lower debt to GDP ratio than the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
It is absolutely absurd the way that we characterise asylum and the way we characterise, I suppose, risk amongst the judiciary in this country. Darren, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, actually, you know, I would argue that the people that are being oppressed in Pakistan are Christians, you know, few and far between in that country at this point. But those people are killed, you know, they are chased down and murder is committed against them. We've talked earlier, 100 million quid for Pakistani family planning. You know, the fact of the matter is, Pakistan has always, I think, had some semblance of a kind, benevolent British sort of pat on the back because of the fact that people look back at our history and feel some deep sense of shame. It's about empire shaming, you know. Yes. I remember when the Westminster Abbey flew the Pakistan flag, the national flag, above its building, and I felt deeply, deeply uncomfortable with that for the very fact that there are so many Christians in that country who do not feel that they are safe, that they have any semblance of human rights in the absolute sort of basic definition of that phrase in law. So ultimately, I have no truck with any of this. I do not, and the fact of the matter is, there are far too many people that do come over from that country who go on to do things that many of us, millions of us, find thoroughly objectionable. It's about reprioritisation, and some people from certain places are coming to this country in far too many numbers. But with that said, before someone clips this up, there are many people that I know who have come from Pakistan, second generation, all the rest of it, who are very good, decent people.
But my dad's from India.
He's
an Indian immigrant, and he didn't take a single day off for 25 years since he landed on the shores of Australia. So not by a boat, by the way. He came by a plane. It doesn't matter, though. He came to Australia legally. I agree with you. It's not an indictment on that. Are you now going to have an issue with that?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna touch the elephant in the room because there's a very big difference between India and Pakistan, and that is because India is not a Muslim majority country. The vast majority of people who are coming from Pakistan are Islamic. There are many people, Darren, in this country who are deeply uncomfortable with the rising number of Muslims as a proportion of the total population. What is Reform's position on the changing demographics in that regard?
We're going to go to break at some point, Will, but yes.
What is Reform's position on the changing demographics in this country, and particularly the rising percentage of people who identify as Muslim in the United Kingdom?
Well, I think all of that fundamentally comes down to democratic consent. I don't think the British public were ever asked if they wanted to receive so many people in such high numbers, whether they be Muslim, whether they be Sikh, whether they be whatever else. I don't care if you're a Jedi. You know, ultimately, we did not actually give consent for the fundamental change of our country over such a vast and a short amount of time, where it's completely unsustainable for local government, central government, to be able to plan an economy in that way. And I hate that word because I sound like a communist, but you get what I mean. If you don't have the road infrastructure, if you don't have the housing, if you don't have all of these other things, how can you possibly accommodate that? And all of the while, you know, I saw today in at the House of Commons, a Labour backbencher asked the Prime Minister about the Islamophobia definition, bringing that, you know, it was touted about being brought into law. And actually it was said that it's going to be basically the way in which he's getting around reviving it is saying that it's an anti-Muslim law. Well, I'm sorry, but we don't have an anti-Christian law, do we?
Correct.
And we don't for very good reason. Is that we don't believe in blasphemy, and we cannot allow people, I don't care where you come from, that is not how we do things here in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And if you don't like that, then quite frankly, you know where the door is.
Couldn't agree with you more, Darren. I wanted to end this on, we're actually sending £19 million to Pakistan to combat child sexual exploitation. Interesting, because the grooming gangs still haven't had their, the victims who I've been talking to have actually been out with quite a few times, just in a social way, because they're lovely girls. They haven't received an inch of justice from this government, but it's nice to know that we've got 19 million in the back of the couch to give to Pakistan for their child sexual exploitation. Katie says, I agree with Darren. Things are spiraling. I'm hoping Reform can fix us. And Ernie says, Darren is completely right. Anthony also says the same. You've got a lot of fans here, Darren. Thank you so much for coming on the show. That's Darren Grimes, the legend himself, from Reform UK. Wow, what a man. I mean, that was it was a really interesting conversation because Reform does keep coming up in the news cycle on their different positions on things. Do give me a call, 0344 499 1000. That is the number. I know you had a lot of questions there. I'm glad you got them too, Darren, because you're right. Sometimes they're a new party. We need to think about how they're actually going to run this country. It's a serious chalice that we're handing over to them, something that gets more and more poisoned by the day.
Yeah, and look, part of it is me wanting to have a bit of fun with Darren on air, but I think Farage is playing a very cunning game. There is still, 3.5 years to go until an election. Think of them as they are embryonic as a party. It is so incredibly difficult to build a political party, and everyone on the left are out to get them. One little slip and this whole political experiment could go up in flames. So I think he has actually been quite calculated in pulling back selectively from some issues. He's been quite calculated in not revealing his full hand on particularly economic policy.
Farage.
Some people on the right have criticised him because he may not be touching the issue of Islamism in the way that they would expect him to. But I think he realises that it will be very easy for the left to smear him as racist or Nazi or far right, and he's trying to avoid that. There is a long way to go till the next election, and if Reform are going to have to play a blinder to actually win, notwithstanding the polls as they currently stand.
Well, speaking of fascistic leadership, I'm getting screamed at by my producer. We've got to take a break. Guys, see you after these messages.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Woodsy says scrap the aid 100% and let the lefties donate their own cash instead. Now that would look interesting. Let's see if they donate their own cash. Ernie says, hi Samara, this Zach Polanski is obviously a shrewd man. I'm sure he's going to clean up the trans vote with the power of his mind. Yeah, I know. He could basically mastermind them to have boobs. That would be interesting. Anthony said, hi Samara, I never thought I would hear two Aussies talking sense at the same time, but you and Will have changed my opinion. Well done, the pair of you. Oh, that's very sweet, Anthony. Thank you so much for listening. We've got Mark in Lincolnshire on the line. Mark, welcome to the show.
Hi there, Samara.
Hi there, how are you?
Yeah, not so bad. I think we spoke a couple of weeks back or so.
Yeah, we did. You were talking about the asylum system. Mahmood can't fix it. Ooh, controversial opinion right now.
I don't.
No, but it is, because people think she's tough as nails. You know, she's the hard one in the Labour Party. She's going to do things. I don't think it's true.
I'm going to get onto that. She hasn't actually... I'll get into that right now, actually, because you have... what I'm finding really, really annoying and irritating with this whole thing since she's come out with all this absolute claptrap is basically you've got all these people on the right that are coming out and going on like she's some kind of hard right, you know, like she's almost further to the right than Farage. It's crazy. because, you know, I mean, I was watching, I don't know, I'm assuming you might have heard of him, Carl Benjamin, podcast of the Lotus Eaters he does. And he's quite right-wing, and he was coming out. And it seems to me like a lot of these people seem more obsessed with winning the argument, changing a narrative, believing that somehow the Overton window shifted. And it hasn't, because all Shabana Mahmood has done is what all the other politicians, what the Tories kept doing for, like 14 years. They just keep skirting around the edges. They keep coming out with these things that all sound a bit nice, and they sound, oh, this sounds very good. But she hasn't actually announced anything. She's not deporting anybody. What she's saying is they will face deportation. She hasn't said they're going to be deported, but they'll face it. In actual fact, the only thing that she said really with any concrete value is this whole notion of creating, sponsored, safe and legal routes, which is exactly where I knew this was going to go anyway.
Yes,
I've been saying this since Labour got in power. Since Labour got in power, I say that the one thing they're going to do, they will fix it. I said right at the beginning, they'll fix illegal migration. They're going to fix it by legalising it, because they're convinced that the reason people moan is because of illegal migration. So as long as they make it legal, people shut up.
Mark, this is a really good point. I've been thinking about this myself the last few days, and I think it's because for the last 12 to 18 months, we've been conditioned to hear from an ineloquent robot for a Prime Minister. You've got a Chancellor who has less gravitas than a teaspoon. You've got David Lammy, who's David Lammy. And she actually, again, I agree with you. I don't think the policies go anywhere near far enough. But she did have more gravitas than the other Labor leadership that we've heard over the last 18 months. And I think that, quite frankly, has just, surprised some people because the bar has been set so very low.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the bar couldn't get much lower, to be honest. It's ridiculous. I mean, if you were doing a limbo, you'd never do it. Honestly, it's that crazy, isn't it? I mean, the thing is, I don't know. I mean, it's just, the whole thing to me is just insane, because they just can't seem to get their heads around the notion that, yes, illegal migration is a real problem, but the bigger problem is the absolutely excessive legal migration. Now, they may well bring that down to 300,000 or 500,000 in a year, but that's still way too many. Because when you actually look at the way this country is now, if you go back, I mean, I was born in 74. If you go back to the 80s, which is only about 40 years back, the UK was about 92 or 93% ethnically native, basically. You had, a 7-8% minority population. It all worked fine. Nobody objected to immigrants coming in, and we were quite happy wherever they were coming from. It was never a problem. But you look 40 years later, we're less than 70%.
Yeah.
So in 1974, there was 260,000 people that left Britain, and then entered was around 30. So basically, net migration was 34,000 people.
Yeah.
So that's, and you're right. And you know who that's nice to? The people that do come in, and that's also nice to the people in the community, because you're able to be cohesive. Yeah. These are people who really wanted to come here, who wanted to make the place, wanted to make UK better. 34,000, very doable number. Obviously, the last couple of years, it's been in the ranges of 1 million people.
Well, you look at, if you talk to anybody that's like an immigrant, that's an old school immigrant from back in the 70s and what have you. Yeah. They'll say the same thing. They're complaining about the same things I complain about.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Because they're sick and tired. They can't believe, A, the amount of people we're letting in, B, the kind of people we're letting in, and C, the fact that nobody in government seems to understand there's, it's the central thing that is dragging this country apart. Economically, societally, crime-wise, everything comes back to immigration.
Yeah.
And just sheerly from the numbers that you're bringing in. Yeah. Now we just have, basically, we've created a country of just ethnic enclaves. That's all we are now.
And you have
Tower Hamlets the other day. Some sheikh or other got
Tower Hamlets is a microcosm for what's wrong with mass migration. I'll say that much. Yeah. Only because I have no issue with people living their lives, but I do feel like there is a bit of a sort of a big silo effect within that community. And I'd love people within that community to actually get out and embrace British culture. That is what my point.
But they have no need to, Samara.
Yeah.
Do they?
No,
Because
exactly.
This is the point. When you bring so many in, they can create their own community. This is why we have such a problem with people that come in and can't speak English and what have you, because they have no need to speak English.
No, exactly. I remember taking a taxi from Heathrow, and I was with my dad, who's an Indian immigrant, everyone. I've said that many times. I'm not trying to, by the way, admonish myself of anything, but I am trying to say he was with me, and he was talking to the driver, and the driver started talking to him in Punjabi. And my dad said, no, we're going to speak English right now. We're in England. And he said, oh, I haven't really learnt. And he said, how long have you been here for? And the taxi driver goes, 20 years. And my dad goes, that's not good enough. That's not good enough.
Well, this is where we need to be really clear on the difference between multi-ethnicism and multiculturalism. And a lot of people just assume that when you say multiculturalism, oh, you're being a racist. That's not what it means. What it means is that you have an overarching set of values that everyone buys into, you speak the same language, all that sort of good stuff. If you want to bring along the best of Greek culture as well, bring us the kebabs, bring us the good Chinese food, that's all fine. Add the best bits.
I've got a break. I've got a break. Herbie and Harrow after the break. Thank you, Mark.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, Brian says, good evening, Samara. When you think about it, giving money to Pakistan to stop child exploitation is kind of the same policy as smash the gangs. Yeah. Yep. Thanks. Good show. Oh, thanks, Brian. Yeah, you make such a good point. My goodness. Let's go to Herbie and Harrow, who always makes good points. Herbie, welcome to the show.
Good evening, Samara.
Evening.
Well, I think resentment and civil unrest is about to boil over, believe you me. This situation's gone on for far too long, and the government's completely out of control to know what to do or to do anything about it. I think people have had enough, and I think that, we're going to see some very nasty situations before very long. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, look, Herbie, the sad reality is that a lot of people now agree with you. Now, to be perfectly clear, we are not advocating violence. We're not advocating any sort of civil unrest. But the reality is there are very smart people in this country, one called Professor David Betts, who is a professor of modern warfare at Imperial College in London, has said that now the UK is at a tipping point where civil war is a very real possibility. This isn't a fringe theory anymore. A lot of people are saying if you don't get these problems under control, we will... And I'm not talking about, red coat, kind of the red coats lining up in a field and shooting each other.
No.
But large-scale civil unrest is now very much a possibility, Herbie, and I think you've sadly identified a very real threat.
Well, the problem is that while the government sits and does nothing, people are getting more and more frustrated.
That's it.
And when you've got frustrated people, you've got a problem.
That's it.
People will only take so much before they burst themselves. They can't keep on taking the punishment that they've been given. We're suffering with high inflation, with high energy costs. Because energy cost is so high, everything else is going up. Can't the government see that? Why we're the dearest energy crisis in the world? This is why our products are so expensive, because of the energy costs. We've got a nutcase, Ed Miliband, who's running the energy department, who's actually bringing it to its knees, and it's bringing the country to its knees.
Yeah, I sigh because everything you say is right, Herbie. It's true, and I think that it is all these components that will create this pressure cooker environment that we do find ourselves in, where yes, it does seem like there is some sort of civil war, and also because there is a sect of the Islington elites and the others that live in leafy towns that don't experience any of the things that are actually going on the front lines. And having done a bit of reporting on the front lines, you can see that it's always the working class that are put at the front of this migrant invasion, and all the other, issues that come to take this country. I do think you're right. It will be a class... I mean, Britain's got a famous class system. I think it will be class warfare, and I do agree with you, Herbie. There will be some sort of civil war. Not advocating for any violence on the streets, none of that, but even in an intellectual way, there's a real chasm between what people are feeling right now and what's actually going on.
Well, the other thing I would add is people...
what people are saying.
Herbie hit the nail on the head in that it is a frustration that people feel like they're not being listened to, but now you add into the mix a sense of urgency. Because I think a lot of people in this country are getting to the point where they're going, if something is not done very soon, there could be particular problems which will be irreparable. They look at demographic change, they look at the way that their cities are changing, and they go, if something is not done quickly, then this country may be in terminal decline. So it's a combination of the frustration of not being listened to with a sudden sense of urgency that if something is not done quickly, then unfortunately the UK could be in terminal trouble.
People are already taking...
That is a very dangerous cocktail.
Completely right, and people are already taking to the streets and marching. So that's how you know what point we're at. Herbie, thank you so much for your call. Really, really appreciate it. Well, up next, you're going to want to stay tuned for this. It's Lisa Bloom. She was the attorney for the Epstein victims. She has a lot to say about those Epstein files that they have said that they will release.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, there was a massive vote that yesterday basically unwaveringly said that the Epstein files, which have been a massive, colossal thing within the media for years and years, release the Epstein files, release the Epstein files. Well, it's finally happened. They're going to be released in, I think, about 30 days. I've got a brilliant panel to discuss them. It's Lisa Bloom, attorney for the Epstein victims, and Brianna Morello. She's a journalist who's been covering this really closely. Welcome to the show, both of you. I want to go to Lisa first. Lisa, what does this vote yesterday mean for you?
Well, on behalf of the 11 Epstein victims I represent, let's get on with it. Let's release the files. President Trump has not signed the law yet, and it has not been released. I don't know how long it's going to take, and there are exceptions in the bill. The Attorney General, Pam Bondi, can withhold documents if they're part of an investigation, and President Trump has said he wants Democrats named in the files to be investigated. So, you know, we're going to believe it when we see it. So far, we don't have the files.
Yes, that's true. We're just waiting patiently for them. I mean, it's really, really, I think it's going to be a real shift almost in public discourse when we see those names. Of course, they're preparing us. They're saying, oh, whoever's mentioned might not have done, you know, sexually deviant things. But if they are in those files, it means that somehow they were associated to Epstein. Brianna, what can we expect from these files potentially?
Well, I'm a little concerned that a lot of the important information that we would want to see may either be heavily redacted or it might not even exist anymore. You know, the previous administration didn't do anything on that front of putting anything out. And I would just assume, you know, knowing that President Trump laid out this campaign commitment to release the files, if there was anything that they didn't want the public to see, I would imagine that probably disappeared. Listen, we have an administration right now that claims to be transparent, and we're not getting transparency on several other key crimes. And I'm deeply concerned that although they are claiming that they're going to be releasing this and the president supports it, anything of substance might not actually exist anymore, and it might not actually be in those files. And we sat there and watched as the AG did that political stunt with those social media influencers in front of the White House. I don't have high hopes that they're going to be as transparent as one would wish.
I want to just bring in Will Kingston, who's in the studio here. He's very keen to ask a question about this. I mean, there's so many unanswered questions still. Will?
Yeah. Hi, ladies. The question that I have goes to comments that were made by the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, earlier today, where I think he was expecting the Senate perhaps to put up more of a fight than what it did. I think it went through the Senate unanimously. He pointed to national security concerns as a reason for potentially making amendments to that original bill. Are there valid national security concerns of releasing these files?
I mean, not that I'm aware of. That's the first I've heard of that. So if there is something that's protected by national security concerns, I would assume that they're going to withhold that. But who knows?
Right. Yeah. Sorry, Brianna. Go on.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to jump in there, too. You know, we're still waiting. If you guys aren't familiar, back on January 1st, there was a cyber truck that exploded outside of the Trump Hotel. And unfortunately, our Department of War classified the entire manifesto and won't give us an explanation. I've been reaching out for an explanation as to why the entire manifesto has been classified. We've already seen the email, so we know what's in there. And according to the source I've spoken to, there shouldn't be this blanketed, classified kind of example going out there and the excuse being given. So I'm deeply concerned that they're going to use that as an excuse to hide a lot of the big donors who are in this. Listen, anyone who knows and follows my work, I am conservative. I've obviously voted for the President of the United States, and I do support all of the information regarding obviously we don't want the victims' names and anything out there on their end, but everything else being brought forward. I don't like this. I don't like the sound of what I heard Speaker Johnson saying, and it has me deeply concerned.
The one thing which does provide some comfort is that I'm aware that the way that they've drafted the bill means that if they are going to redact something, they actually then have to provide some sort of justification as to why it has been redacted, as opposed to the previous release where you just had pages and pages of blank or black paragraphs with no explanation.
Lisa?
Oh, I'm sorry, that was directed to me?
Yes.
So,
okay.
yes, and as a litigator, I can tell you that's the way that it's supposed to be done. So, you know, it's very common in litigation when we're disclosing documents, one side to the other, that documents are redacted, that things are blacked out for one reason or another. But you're absolutely right. We can't just do that, you know, based on whatever we're feeling at the time. You have to disclose to the other side the legal justification for the redaction. So I would hope that's going to happen here. I share Brianna's concern that there has not been transparency. There's been this basically been a political football being thrown back and forth. And I can tell you something, you know, my clients, I've never asked them if they're Democrats or Republicans. I don't care. When they're accusing somebody of sexual abuse, I don't ask if the accused is a Democrat or Republican. I don't care. I care about accountability for sexual abuse. And I wish that our leaders felt the same way. And we'll see when the documents get turned over about whether this continues to be a political issue.
You're right, Lisa. You're completely right. And you've done so much good work. I've been following it so closely for these victims, trying to bring them justice. It is seriously commendable because you've been up against it. I mean, I've been reading Virginia Giuffre's book, kind of. It's been by my bedside. I've been reading page to page every night and then trying to get to sleep because it's so horrendous. Some of the stuff and the fact that there are a lot of men mentioned in that book who know all the names. They know who is included in this, but they are the ones who are still silent. It's crazy that it's had to come to these abused girls to try and bring truth to power here. I mean, Brianna, I'm a conservative too. I'm a big fan of Trump. But why has he made this U-turn on the Epstein files? It does seem really day and night, his attitude towards releasing them. Where do you think this has come from?
Well, I think they probably had a private discussion with him, if I could just speculate there a little bit. There was probably a discussion that was had. A lot of Americans don't like the fact that he was saying the word hoax when talking about the Epstein files. And I don't think he meant it in the sense that this whole thing was concocted and it was fake. I think he was saying it in the sense that, as we saw play out last week, Democrats specifically putting out 3 emails that were hand-selected rather than just putting everything out there for the American people to decide on their own. And they intentionally redacted a very key name. Obviously, it's Virginia Giuffre, according to Republicans now.
Yeah, Caroline Leavitt came out and said it.
Yeah, and so the fact that they did that just shows you that this is all about political theater. And so from the angle of that he knows this being manipulated by those on the left to kind of feed a certain narrative and try to cast shame on this White House, I think that's what he meant it from. But again, we spoke out about it. We didn't like the way he was angling it. So I think he heard the people's kind of outrage and disgust when he heard the word hoax being used, when we all heard the word hoax being used. Listen, we don't want this to be a political fight. The left so far has done just that. And we're now learning new information. The only new information is that Jeffrey Epstein was speaking directly to Democrats through text messages and through emails and was getting this communication through them. And we didn't know this previously. So I think that's the big key factor in all of this that they were trying to shift the attention away from.
Lisa, it seems like it's very on both sides. I mean, we know that Bill Clinton is a massive... The Clintons are massively kind of implicated within the Epstein files. We also know that Trump is mentioned. Now, by all accounts, including Virginia Giuffre's, Trump never did anything creepy towards her. In fact, he actually chucked Epstein out of his club when he thought that he was being a sleaze. Do you agree with the politicization of these files? Do you agree with the politicization of justice for these victims?
Listen, anybody who thinks that Donald Trump cares about sexual abuse has to look at his record. First of all, after a hard-fought case, a jury found him responsible for sexual abuse of an adult woman, E. Jean Carroll, a few years ago, which has been upheld on appeal multiple times. He then went and defamed her. Only a few days ago, he called a female reporter piggy. I mean, the man is a misogynist. I personally represented 4 of the 28 women who accused him of sexual misconduct. He bragged on tape about going backstage at Miss Teen USA to watch underage girls changing their clothes. I mean, on and on and on. He is not a choir boy. He does not care about sexual abuse. He cares about politics and power. And he had to change his view. He was just a few days ago calling Republicans who supported release of the files traitors, calling them into his office, trying to get them to change their vote. But he could tell that the American people had had it. They were standing with the survivors and, frankly, the brave Republican women who were also calling for release of the files with all of the Democrats. Yeah. And that's why he had to change. He had to. It is very rare that Donald Trump will change his mind on anything, but he had to, because guess what? Most people think that sexual abuse is a bad thing and that we should have accountability. And there are dozens and dozens of pictures of Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein. He was on the plane with Jeffrey Epstein. In the recent document dump that we did get, Epstein says he knows that he could finish off Donald Trump if he wanted to, implying that there are secrets. There is the birthday card that Donald Trump denies writing, but that was also released where Donald Trump also refers to secrets with Jeffrey Epstein. So that's why Donald Trump wanted to cover it up. And I'm sure that in the documents that are going to be released, there's more embarrassing information about Donald Trump. Now, I'm not saying he abused underage girls with Jeffrey Epstein, but I'm saying all of the disclosures continue to look very bad for him.
Lisa, I mean, really good points there. I mean, he's absolutely no shrinking violet Trump, that's for sure. And you know what? I mean, I think my whole argument towards this is that actually I think the release of these documents are just embarrassing for Trump. I don't think that we'll find that he's this outrageous pedophile who's been hiding in plain sight, but I do, because he's actually quite open about his crazy sexual proclivities. But I do think that it will be embarrassing. I mean, even this one that's gone viral is this 2018 message in which the brothers talked about whether Vladimir Putin had knowledge of an alleged image showing Trump blowing Bubba. Now, that's spread like wildfire on social media. Brianna, do you have anything to say to what Lisa's just said there?
Yes, thank you for that. Lisa, I have a question for you. I know that you do represent several of these clients. Have any of these clients made any claims against the President of the United States?
They couldn't be. Yeah, oh, actually, one of them, yes, she did in the 1990s. That's Jill Harth. And Donald Trump settled that case with her, even though he said he doesn't settle sexual harassment cases. He did settle. The other ones were time barred under the statute of limitations, so it was too late for them to file. E. Jean Carroll, as you know, did sue him and did win in court.
Well, she did sue, but there was the manipulation of the law in New York State where they decided to just kind of make this exemption where they were going to extend the statute of limitation.
Well, there should be no statute of limitations on sexual abuse. Can't we agree on that? That predators shouldn't just be able to run down the clock and then get away with sexual abuse. If somebody can prove it, let's open up the courthouse doors. Let's let them get in there, present their evidence. And, you know, the defense can defend, as Donald Trump did very vigorously through his high-priced lawyers. Why should the statute of limitations be a get-out-of-jail-free card for predators?
Well, the statute of limitation, I think, is a way to kind of make things fair for both sides, right? Because those can make claims, and to defend yourself, you would require some type of evidence to do just that. And a lot of these times, the reason the statute of limitation exists is because a lot of the evidence would no longer be in existence. You know, I don't remember seeing much in the way of evidence proving the claims that were made in that courtroom. I think we saw through J6 prosecutions here.
I don't know if
I just want to kind of add this, Lisa. I didn't cut you off, so I'd appreciate it if you didn't cut me off either. I would appreciate it if you didn't cut me off either, Lisa. Let me finish my thoughts because I was respectful and I took notes, so I didn't have to cut you off. But talking over people is not very, it's not very professional.
Okay,
so let's get back to this.
Let's not say it favors both sides. That's not accurate.
All right.
Let me finish my thought, because cutting me off does not help the conversation. I let you finish your thoughts. The statute of limitation in New York was intentionally manipulated so that claims could come forward and they could target President Trump directly. Now, that was exclusive. We knew that because they laid it out for us. New York Democrats did just that. So that was politically motivated. I think the president has every right to defend himself with physical evidence being presented to show those claims, and he was never given that opportunity.
Well, okay, none of that is accurate. So here in the U.S., there have been many states that have extended the statute of limitations for victims to come forward and prove sexual abuse. This happened in many states, California, where I practice primarily, New York, and throughout the country. Most people think that is a good thing. Donald Trump had every right to come into court and present evidence. He chose not to testify. Very interestingly, he had every right to testify. Instead, he took to social media and attacked E. Jean Carroll. She had two witnesses who came in and testified that she told them contemporaneously that Donald Trump had molested her. And they came in and testified. They were cross-examined extensively by his lawyers. All of the evidence was presented. And you know what? He had a jury. The jury came back for E. Jean Carroll. It was upheld on appeal. So all of the people who say, well, the women haven't filed any claims, well, here's one who did file claims. And I can tell you, as somebody who has fought for victims for over 40 years, it is very difficult to litigate a sexual abuse case against a high-profile person. Against Donald Trump, multiply that times 100. I mean, even Marjorie Taylor Greene, a far-right Republican congresswoman this week, talked about the death threats that she got for simply opposing Trump on release of the Epstein files. Well, imagine litigating against him for years and saying that he sexually abused you. It takes a very, very strong person to withstand that. Most people cannot withstand it. I personally got a lot of death threats because of the 4 women that I represented. I had to hire extra security. That's what you're dealing with if you're calling Donald Trump a sexual abuser, even though he's caught on tape bragging about grabbing women by the, you know what, by the genitals, right? Which is not strange sexual behavior. That's non-consensual sexual behavior. That's sexual assault. That evidence, by the way, came in at trial. The jury got to hear it because it's him bragging about the very thing that E. Jean Carroll said that he did.
Lisa, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I do want to pull us back to Epstein. And you did mention Marjorie Taylor Greene there, and I think that is a nice segue, Brianna, which is there have actually been some ructions on the right of the MAGA movement around the Epstein files.
Massively so. That's why it's really interesting to get both perspectives. I do just want to thank both of you for coming on, because I think there's a massive fracture in the MAGA movement about this.
Yes, that's right. I was setting up a question there, but I'm assuming we've lost... do we still have our guests on the line?
Yes, we do.
Oh,
right,
wonderful, wonderful. Brianna, my question to you would be, how does the right of the MAGA movement, as Trump moves slowly into his lame duck phase, like what does the future of that movement look like, and how will the whole Epstein scandal impact the MAGA movement as Trump's presidency comes to its end?
Well, he's got a couple more years in the White House, and we look forward to that. But I think in regard to the Epstein stuff, we'll just have to wait and see what comes out. I mean, we don't know. I'm not going to make the assumptions that there are going to be anything that's going to cast doubt on him. We have midterms coming up as well, so I'm sure that will play a significant role in our upcoming midterm elections. As of right now, though, any of the violent threats that have been made to MTG or others, I've spoken about this on X. I do not stand for that, and I think we need to stand as a united force rather than picking off our own, like what's happened with MTG as well. I stand with her in regards to the Epstein files being released, and I have since day one, and I don't like the fact that it's been politically driven this entire time. I would fully support it. But yeah, I think when it comes to MAGA right now, I think a lot of us are critical as to his foreign policy, what's been going on lately in the White House, but I don't think the Epstein files will have any type of longevity on that.
I did find it interesting how he always meets with a very prolific foreign leader when the Epstein files are up on show and up on play. I mean, the meeting with the Saudi Arabian king was an interesting move yesterday. But, just quickly, I just want to get your thoughts, because Trump is suing our Broadcasting Association for $1 billion. While I've got an attorney here and an American, well, both of you are American, what do you think about that? Should he sue, just in kind of one line, should he be suing the BBC for $1 billion, Lisa?
Of course not. This is the most thin-skinned president who cannot stand any little mistake, any little criticism. People get sued, and he wants to line his pockets with media companies, some of which have already paid him millions of dollars. No other president has ever done that. Most presidents say, you know what, part of the job is getting criticized. Part of the job is putting up with press that I don't like. The BBC has already apologized. It's an embarrassment that he would want to sue them and line his pockets with the money that he would get from the case.
Brianna?
It's not criticism he's suing over. He's suing over defamation when they decided to manipulate footage knowingly and admitted to doing just that, issuing that apology. I think any person in this country has a right to defend themselves, to take this matter into court and let it play out in court. Listen, he's making an argument over defamation. We saw it play out with J6ers, where our own federal government manipulated evidence and used it against them and lied about evidence and literally made things appear out of thin air. So they didn't have a fair shot. They're all now fighting for that day in court as well, and we look forward to covering it. It's not just that they made a mistake. They committed defamation. They should be held accountable.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, both of you. Honestly, it's such a divisive topic, this one, so I wanted to have both perspectives because I think it split a lot of people. And when we can only just wait for those files and see what will come out, who knows? I'd love to get you both back on the show then. That's Lisa Bloom, attorney for the Epstein victims, and Brianna Morello. She is a fantastic journalist. Wow. Oh, my goodness. That is it. I'm telling you, it riles people up. And I'm sorry, I think I riled you up there, Will, too.
Oh, no, it doesn't nothing riles me up.
Such a lie.
Nothing riles me up, Samara. You're right. There is basically, there is the old line, Trump could walk down Fifth Avenue with a shotgun and start shooting away, and his supporters would still support him. It has been that level of devotion. But the Epstein issue has actually started to see some cracks forming in his popularity amongst his base. And people now are going, he's got, what, two or three more years left in the White House, 3 more years left in the White House. After those midterms, which the Democrats will probably win, he will be a lame duck president. People are starting to think, what happens after Trump? What does the future of MAGA look like? Is it J.D. Vance? Is it someone else who'll come
Marco Rubio.
Yeah, is it someone who will come out of the woodwork? But I think it's just starting to dawn on them, and particularly after the Democrats did very well in several mayoral races in recent weeks, maybe they need to start thinking about life after Donald Trump, and you could start to see more division within MAGA in the coming months ahead.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. And let's see, these files, I think they'll be explosive. I think we're not talking about something that's going to have just a couple names. It's going to be thousands and thousands of pages, and there will be very high-profile people mentioned in them. Speaking of high-profile people, Meghan Markle, well, she's kind of a low-profile person, to be honest, or she tries to be. She's called what we would call a D-list actress. I'm going to be going over to one of my favorite people after the break, Kinsey Schofield. She's over in LA, and she's not playing around.
In terms of your question around taxes, there are no additional tax rises needed beyond the ones that I've set out.
Don't need to increase taxes. I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes.
I will not increase your national insurance. I will not increase your VAT, and I will not increase your income tax.
We don't need to come back for more. We've done that now. We've wiped the slate clean.
The economic circumstances have declined, deteriorated since a year ago. We are having to look at taxes and spending.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, I'm just recovering from that. 03444991000 is the number. Talk to me about the Epstein files. What do you think is in them? I mean, from what I've been hearing, it's pretty salacious. It's pretty weird. It's pretty creepy. But what's new? Speaking of salacious, weird and creepy, Meghan Markle, she's released a new festive kind of trailer that looks like a sycophantic sideshow. Let's have a look at it.
I love the holiday season. It's about finding time to connect with the people we love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Embracing traditions. I like this.
There we go.
And making new ones.
We are now in the
It's pretty jolly here. Let's go craft. Heyo. It's so pretty. So easy and elegant.
It's better the next day, and everything turns red.
It's so festive. Being a hostess or a host, it's about making people feel comfortable.
You can do things that make people feel a little bit more seen. See?
Let the festivities commence and embrace the special touches that bring you joy.
Should we see if this works? There we go.
1, 2, 3.
Oh! There we go.
Everything's fine. Everything's great. I don't have any family surrounding me. I've completely trashed all relationships in my life, but that's all good. Well, joining me now is Kinsey Schofield, host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. Kinsey, what is your reaction to that?
My God. Yeah, Megan teaching us about nurturing relationships during the holidays is like asking a snowman for tips on surviving summertime. It's bold, it's ambitious, and it's not rooted in reality. I just have no desire to watch her play home in someone else's home with a bunch of strangers that she's just meeting for the first time while they act like they are lifelong friends here to give us guidance on how to enjoy the holidays. Like, actually, I will have a much better holiday if I do not hear the words Meghan Markle.
That's not even a cynical reading. That's actually just the truth of what that show is. And this is definitely, I mean, this is seriously, I mean, you just described what exactly that holiday special really is. And I think she must have filmed that alongside the other back-to-back shows that she did. I mean, it seems like the woman only did about 2 months of work this entire year between going to fashion shows in Paris and sort of, you know, putting stuff in jars and sending them off. She doesn't do that much work. And I don't think there's going to be any more on the horizon. I mean, we saw her cozy up to Jeff Bezos recently at Kris Jenner's 70th birthday party. Is she looking for the next step? Is this the final chapter of her strange relationship with Netflix?
I don't know if she wants to continue doing this, because while we're laughing about 2 or 3 months of work, it's too much work for Meghan Markle. I think she would prefer to be an influencer. I think she'd rather shoot a 15 to 30 second, okay, maybe 60-second video if the price is right, upload that, and then get, you know, a $500,000 paycheck or whatever she could get for posts on social media. I do think that it's much harder work than she cares to pursue. She also hates the backlash. She hates the criticism she receives. She's become TikTok's favorite parody in 2025, and she absolutely loathes that. But I mean, a lot of debate about what kind of star power she was going to get for the holiday special. We know Catherine, Princess of Wales, has Kate Winslet coming for the Christmas Carol concert, which is a huge win for the royal family. Oscar winner, everybody knows her, whether it's from Titanic or just being adorable in interviews, talking about being 50 and very relatable. And Meghan manages to get Naomi Osaka, who's notoriously sensitive to the point of being a whiner and generating headlines that include words like meltdown.
You know, sound like they found each other, to be honest.
They did. You know, accused of unsportsmanlike conduct back in August of 2025. Exactly. Meghan's met her match.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's not exactly, I mean, it was like with season 2, which was a massive flop, didn't even make it to the top 10 charts, which for the amount of money that Netflix has paid is a colossal disaster. You're right. I think everything she has touched has sort of gone to, well, I can't say that on air, but it's not been
Santa's
good.
naughty list.
Yeah.
Santa's naughty list.
Yeah, exactly. It's gone on Santa's naughty list. But I think that's the issue. She is a toxic brand that no one wants to associate themselves with. I mean, I actually kind of came up again. I know there was that drama basically last week about how the Kardashians had her scrubbed from their party videos, or she asked them to have her scrubbed from them. I think that the Kardashians didn't want to be associated with her because even to them, they are a toxic brand. And you're right, she has publicly gone out and said, I don't really want to do these productions with 80 people. I'd much rather do a 1 to 2 minute reel on Instagram. I mean, where to now for Meghan? What is the next step for this woman? Because everything that she doesn't work. It just doesn't work out. It looks like Harry is miserable. He wants to return back to the royal family. I mean, divorce might even be on the cards, Kinsey.
Well, I mean, I think that's pretty obvious. Inevitably, we will be on divorce watch if I'm being as cynical as I feel like being today in this mood after having to watch that YouTube trailer. That's my vibe. But, you know, Prince Harry, again, heading to Toronto to speak at a conference where they're charging like almost £300 for a leadership conference, spending more time away from home. But can I ask you, I'm going to give Meghan some credit here. While I think she absolutely does not deserve to sit on Fortune's most influential, Fortune's most powerful women's stage and summit, at least she has a tangible product. What has Harry accomplished that allows him to stand in front of a room full of entrepreneurs to talk about leadership? He is America's favorite Nepo baby, literally hit the lottery with his DNA. He has loses Senabali this year. African Parks charity, you know what, hitting the fan. It feels insane that some of these companies continue to turn a blind eye and play into this fantasy that Harry and Meghan and their team are trying to get us all to fall under.
You're right. He is a hollowed out shadow of a man, and I think that he's been sort of second step with Meghan, and it is sort of, it reminds me a little bit of the Diana King Charles relationship, but I really don't want to compare them because they're very different. But I do think he doesn't like playing second fiddle in a way. I think he was wowed by Meghan to begin with, of course. I mean, as Tina Brown always put it, he was wowed by Meghan because she knew how to make a restaurant reservation. And obviously, the world that he'd come from, that's amazing. You know, she really knows. She's a mover and a shaker. She knows what she's doing, type of thing. I think he'd be wowed by any sort of civilian who had a bit of chutzpah to get themselves into Hollywood. So I agree with you. I think we're seeing kind of the end of his career. The fact that he is almost like a thoroughbred racehorse that can only exist within the tracks of the royal family, and he can't exist outside of that institution. And some might say that that's quite upsetting for him, but in a way, you're right. He is the Nepo baby of the entire century. He won the genetic, well, maybe not the genetic lottery with his hair loss, but he won the lottery in terms of being into the royal family and being born into that institution. And what has he done? He's spaffed it all away. He's basically flushed it down the toilet, and he's been aided and abetted by Meghan. So yeah, you're right. And I think probably the saddest thing about this holiday series is that there'll be no mention of either of their families. Their kids will continue to live these lonely lives without their cousins who are over here in London, and they'll have a very lonely existence. And you know what? I've got a lot of time for estranged families. I really do. You know, there's not a family that I know that doesn't have some sort of, you know, strange uncle or auntie or mother who's off with someone, etc. But Meghan isn't upfront about it. It is this manufactured authenticity that she continues to perpetuate to her audience that no one's falling for. Would you agree with that, Kinsey? I mean, it's just weird.
It is weird, and the way that they are so destructive when it comes to Prince Harry's family specifically. Meghan pretends like hers just don't exist, and they never did. Meanwhile, Samantha's like still trying to sue her sister for defamation, half-sister for defamation.
Yes.
Meghan pretends like hers didn't exist at all, and she's been incredibly destructive towards Prince Harry's, but she likes the perks. The only reason Meghan Markle, the girl that was auditioning for Shakira music videos, and, you know, fellatio in the pilot episode of 90210.
Oh, yeah.
Was at the Kardashians party was because she insists on continuing to use the Duchess of Sussex title. She would not be invited to that party otherwise with Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and Beyonce and Jay-Z. That is not a room she could have talked her way in herself. Thank God she married into the British royal family. They elevated her. They opened doors for her. They gave her the platform she has today. And then she accuses them of racism with Prince Harry coming in behind a year later and denying that that ever happened. It's the fact that they're so hurtful and destructive, making the last few lives of Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip's a nightmare from hell, really, so fearful of what was to come, what accusations they were going to make next. But they continue to use that title and the gifts that the royal family gave them by way of relevance to elevate themselves. If you hate this family so much, if they're racists, then be Meghan Mountbatten Windsor, and you can be Harry Mountbatten Windsor, but they refuse to do that.
At the end of the day, she's just a D-list actress that socially mountaineered her way up to the top. And it's annoying because actually sometimes I wish that she would just embrace that. I wish that she would be a little bit more authentic with that. You know, even when she's with her friends, she should talk about, you know, sequestering Harry in the Soho house that night in London. You know, I want to hear those stories. And I think that would make her a lot more likable. But she's never going to do that because she knows that she hides behind this veil. And when I think about the fact that, as you said, she could be spending her Christmases in Balmoral, but she's traded that for Kris Jenner's 70th birthday party hosted at Jeff Bezos's mansion. It just shows me that trash is trash and it will come home to roost. I mean, sorry, but it might be very savage, but that's what it feels like with Meghan. And you're right, without the family name, if there is a divorce on the cards, and I know that you are the one who's always broken that, you broke that amazing kind of story about the divorce book potentially being shopped around. What would
Vanity
that look
Fair
like?
did.
Well,
Vanity Fair. I'm not going to take credit for Vanity Fair.
I thought that was you. Okay, well, what would that divorce book look like, Kinsey?
Well, I mean, I think we probably would know what it looked like immediately because I'm sure parts of it already exist. She talked about writing in her diary at Frogmore Cottage and stumbling upon that diary when they were given the boot, forced to move out. She openly discusses not having to sign an NDA. She would definitely make the British royal family, and particularly William and Catherine, since she is seething with jealousy over these two, the villains of this story. But I think that she's probably already collecting that evidence today to write that book.
I agree with you. I mean, just to see that this is more on Harry's side, but it's an indication of how no one trusts them anymore. Harry having to enter into Clarence's house through the visitor's entrance, opposed to the family and friends entrance, basically because they probably wanted to check him for listening devices. Meaning that's just an assumption that I make. Shows how much they don't trust that gruesome twosome. And yes, how much she is collecting. We don't know what she might have on Harry, what he might have told her, and what she's going to shop to the public when that relationship does kind of go down the drain, which from that serial killer video that she posted on Instagram of him in the black and white room and her sort of celebrating some sports win. I mean, he looked miserable in those couple of seconds before he then had to feign happiness. It really, I mean, I can't believe she posts that stuff. Even if that was a video of me and my partner, I'd be like, oh God, he looks like he wants to die. I'm not going to put that out, you know. Takes an inch of common sense. Well, Kinsey, thank you so much for joining me. That's Kinsey Schofield, one of my favorite people of all time. She's the host of Unfiltered. Go check that out on YouTube. It's a brilliant thing that I watch basically nightly when I get back from work. The best thing ever. That's Kinsey Schofield. Your calls after the break.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, Will Kingston thinks that the Royals aren't going to get divorced, actually. He's come up with some very crazy, but actually very good alternate theories. I mean, Will, do you think they'll get divorced?
No, the producers said, Will, why don't you just sit this one out? I'm sure you're not interested in Harry and Meghan. Absolutely not true. I felt very hurt. But what I will say is I think there is 0% chance that these two get divorced. The reason I say that is that they are tied to each other now for better, but more likely for worse. He's burnt all of his bridges in the UK, particularly when Charles dies. There is no way in hell that William is letting him anywhere near the royal family.
The man looks miserable, Will.
And equally, Meghan is useless. She's got no talent. The only thing that she has is this tangential relationship to the royal family. They need each other. It's almost like this kind of weird Greek tragedy.
It is like
they are bound together, and even if they end up hating each other, and who knows what goes on behind the scenes, they are stuck with each other now.
You're right. It is a bit of sort of like an abusive relationship, don't you think? Where they're both having to be together because they've destroyed on either side every sort of possibility of ever doing anything else outside the relationship.
The abuse isn't domestic; it's them abusing everyone else. It's an externally abusive relationship.
Let's go to Trevor in Edinburgh. Trevor, welcome to the show.
Hello there.
What did you want to say to Will and I, me and Will?
Well, I'd phoned up about an hour and a bit ago, and you were talking about other things at that time, so I don't know if you would even want to speak, but I'm in Scotland, in Edinburgh, and I've been watching quite a number of things on the internet today from different channels, Sky, GB News, talkTV, Talk Radio TV, you know. And it seems to me, somebody in Scotland, that it could almost look like England's on fire because of all this controversy going on about the extremists in certain religions who want to convert the whole country to their point of view, disregarding what your own views are. You know, I was brought up in the church, for example, but I'm not a kind of extremist Christian or somebody who goes about saying you better believe it or else, all that rubbish that people talk. I watch what's happening, though, and I watch different debates, people talking to each other, and the amount of anger and hatred coming out of people in Britain, it's absolutely terrible what's going on in this country right now, because the government have obviously completely lost control of the police, the judicial system, the amount of people coming in here unchecked, unregistered, and getting all sorts of lies told by politicians. I was watching a broadcast here where there was a politician, very famous, who said, well, these people come here, you know, they make good doctors and nurses and lawyers. I thought, well, that's good if they're doctors and nurses and lawyers already. You know, if they're coming in here to become a doctor or a nurse or a lawyer or something that's useful to our country, or an engineer, or somebody who can drive a bus, for God's sake. But you get this rhetoric going on all the time, clattering around the media platforms all over the place. And all it's doing is adding hostility. It doesn't help, though, when people are standing on street corners. I was watching a guy on a street corner one day. He was arguing about child abuse. And they started to talk about how older men were picking on younger girls in certain cultures. I'm not going to go into this too much, but I've lived in Britain all my life, and I'm over 70, and I'll tell you this. When I've been to other countries, I've been to Canada and America and all over Europe, I always try, even when I went to Muslim countries, like I've been in Turkey and Syria, and I've always tried to go along with what the people there are doing in a peaceful way. I haven't went to, like, say, Turkey and said, hi, my name's Trevor, I'm from Scotland, I'm a Christian, I think you should build some churches here and let's get the whole lot of you converted, because, you know, your faith is a lot of rubbish. But that's exactly what's happening in Britain right now, in England especially. People are being told that your way of life isn't good enough, we think you should convert to our way of life, and because you've got a clash between these cultures and it's aggressive, it's creating a lot of trouble. So you've got the police on the streets getting hit by bombs and petrol bombs and things thrown at them. You're getting people going about being hostile towards each other. You're getting people who've been in Britain for 10 years from our country and they can't speak a word of English. We've got them in Scotland as well. You can go to certain parts of Scotland and you meet people from other cultures. Now, I'm not against immigrants. I mean, I've got a son who is married to a lady who's from another country. And I've got family members that are half Tibetan people, half people from Thailand. So I've got none of this racist stuff about colour or background. But the one thing I cannot abide, and I'm an old guy telling you this, I'm over 70. You talk to anybody above 45 in this country, anywhere in the UK, and they'll all tell you the same. Come to the country by all means. But when you come here, play by our rules, because when you're in Rome, you do as the Romans do. You don't go over to Rome and say, hey, excuse me, this is how it should be over here because we don't like the way you live. If you don't want that culture and you don't want to live in accordance with our rules, then what I would say is please don't bother coming here, because if you do come here and you're not prepared to integrate, learn the language, marry the people, work as we work, speak as we speak, so that we can understand what you're saying. You're getting people going around in this country now, and I saw them in London when I was there 4 weeks ago, walking about with masks on, dressed in black from head to feet, young men, they were mostly foreign men. You couldn't see their faces properly. They were going about shouting that they should have Sharia, waving flags and all the rest of it. Now look,
You're right, Trevor. Rob says this. Evening, Samara. I've lived in London since 1989. I've never seen it so violent and unsafe. A lot of this crime, I'm afraid, is being committed by foreign, Middle Eastern and North African imports. The truth is, and the truth has to be said, even if it's the deluded lefties. That's from Rich in London. So, yeah, Trevor, you've got a lot of support there.
And Trevor, you also hit on a very good point in that a lot of people that come to this country now believe they are coming to Hotel UK as opposed to joining Team UK. Now, when you come to a country, you should be thinking, I'm joining a team. I'm becoming part of that team and all of the values and all of the principles that underpins that team. But it just feels to me that a lot of people that come to this country now feel like, well, I'm here for, a good time and to take advantage of the benefits and basically to keep on doing what I was doing in whatever third world slummy area that I've come from. There needs to be a fundamental mindset shift in how we think about immigration. I think you've hit on a really good point.
Well, can I just say as well, I'm not here to argue a case, and I do not want to upset people who listen to your show. But I would say to people who are listening to your show, particularly people who come from some of the countries we've been talking about, North African countries, Syria, Iraq, Iran, these are not countries they are happy places, I have to tell you. My brother was all over the Middle East, and he told me exactly what goes on and the kind of brutality.
Yep.
In this world, it's 2025. This is the year 2025. And in certain parts of this world, if a woman goes out and has unlawful sex with a man, she can be stoned to death. Now, this is absolutely a crazy situation, and if they want to bring that in here, here's where I would get conflict. I would be saying to people, if you want to bring in your law to this country, which is basically a Christian country, I mean, there are different groups, Muslims and Hindus and that.
But we are actually one of the few Church of England countries.
Can I finally make this point, though? If you were to bring in the law that they want to be brought in here, their law that they're talking about permits the death penalty. Now, let's imagine you're a British policewoman or policeman, and you witness somebody being stoned to death in Leicester, London, Luton, Leeds, Glasgow, anywhere, wherever it takes place under their law, you're duty-bound under our law to go and arrest that person for the crime of murder. And that's why it cannot work bringing these cultures here and trying to say it has to be our way. It must be the British way that prevails, because the British way is what we all know, you and me and everybody. Most of the people listening to your show right now are all people who grew up under the British rules. And it's not that we hate people from other countries, because I don't hate anybody. I'm a John Lennon fan, the Beatles, you know, all you need is love. But at the same time, you've got to be a realist and say, look here.
Peace
when
and love.
When people come into a country and cause disruption, break the law, attack young women, don't adhere to our policies and our plans, then you have to say no more. Because people, honestly, I can't tell you how much anger there is when you go into Scottish streets and talk to people and you hear the anger coming out of people. I've never witnessed this in my whole life. I grew up in a kind of peaceful Britain where, there was crime going on even back in the 1960s, but there wasn't all this hostility and hatred amongst race. That just didn't exist in the 50s and 60s. And then there was a whole thing where there was a bit of racism, white racism, in certain parts of the country for a while. But it died down, punk rock put an end to it all because they exposed it and ripped it all apart and showed you how stupid it was. And that's the one favour that the Sex Pistols done for this country, that they showed that everything was just nonsense. And I've listened to John London speaking. I've listened to Jim Davidson. I think Jim Davidson's a sensible man. I think that Kevin O'Sullivan, that works for your radio company, is a sensible man. And Ian Collins. And I've spoken to these people. In front of the camera. Julia Hartley-Brewer as well. And I think that your station is one of the stations that's brave enough to say, look, excuse me, we have to talk about this. We can't say, if somebody says...
Amen, Trevor. Amen.
We can't say that people are right-wing extremists just because they say, excuse me, can we have our country back, please? It's not about shoving people out. It's about maintaining the order that we need to have in our country and giving young people hope. That's what... Where's the country?
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of hope missing within young people these days. That's so true, Trevor. Will, what do you think about that?
No.
Trevor's speaking a lot of sense.
Yeah, Trevor, I think what you're hitting on is that there's been this misguided belief from both Labor and the Conservative Party over 20 or 30 years now that all cultures are equal and that as soon as you come from wherever in the world, you will instantly, be able to integrate, and it's just not true. I saw a statistic the other day. Somewhere between 98 and 99% of women in Somalia experience female genital mutilation. No one can tell me that culture is on the same footing as a Western liberal democracy like the United Kingdom. It's very, very obvious that there are some cultures that are not just unequal to our own, but are downright abhorrent. But because the left have said, well, you know what, we need to have this sort of globalist agenda where, we all live happily together and sing Kumbaya holding hands. Unfortunately, that's meant that this multiculturalism and mass migration policy has led to a point where now we have a very, very fractured society in England and of course, Trevor, to maybe perhaps a slightly lesser extent, but in Scotland as well.
Just say this as well to people who are listening to this show, because I'm very much for educating people. I've studied the Quran to a certain degree. I'm not an expert on it. I've studied the Bible. I went to Bible school and I got a diploma in Bible study. I've studied Buddhism and Hinduism and looked into the Eastern religion because I'm very interested in the details. And George Harrison was very influential in the Hindu faith, the Hare Krishna movement, for example. But here's the thing I want to say to religious people who come from countries where they practice FMG. I want to say this to them, particularly to the women. If God, Allah, call him what you like, doesn't matter to me, it's all labels anyway, but if God is perfect, and God created this world, let's say we go along with that, and we believe that God created everybody in this world, all the people, no matter what culture, colour, taste, whatever. Why then would God say it was okay to cut bits off women or men, cut bits off them I'm talking about, if he made the body perfect and the soul perfect and the mind perfect, because God is perfect, be ye therefore perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect.
Yeah.
I was taught that. Then why would women have to have bits cut from their body if God had made them a perfect body? So this FMG thing is a load of rubbish.
Well, there you go. Trevor in Edinburgh, that is Trevor's sermon. Trevor, thank you for coming on the show. And speaking a lot of sense there and sort of bringing some interesting perspectives in. I don't agree with everything, but I mean, he does speak for a sect of the Scottish, sort of the Scottish perspective. Well, I've literally got a minute left, so I want to squeeze Stephen in. Stephen in Manchester, welcome to the show.
How on earth do I follow that?
I know, it's difficult. Trevor, voice of the nation.
Should we end the evening on a high, like a bit of humour?
Go on.
Will's got a dreadful voice, but I had to Google him because he's been coming on for quite a while now. He's actually quite a good-looking boy. I'm not gay or, I'm hetero.
Oh.
He's actually quite a good-looking chap,
All right.
What is going on that? And then I was thinking about you, Samara Gill. Went down to Billabong and there was this thing called frozen snow.
Well,
yeah.
I think it's so funny.
And you're not gay, Stephen. All
Well,
right.
Stephen,
Go on.
Stephen, I'll take
Producer
that, mate.
to give you my number.
I actually think I'm a bit past my prime, but I'll certainly take that, mate. Thank you.
He's got great hair as well, by the way, so that's all.
Yeah, there you go. Stephen, thank you so much. That's Stephen in Manchester.
Checks in the mail, Stephen. Thank you,
yeah,
mate.
give him my address, producer, please. Give him the direct apartment number that I live in. I'd love that. Thanks,
What do you mean?
Stephen.
He wasn't saying anything about you. He was talking about me.
Harry Cole Saves the West is next. Do stay tuned for that because he's saving many things, and one of them is us.